Chapter 153. In the seats of Songqing University Martial Arts Club, Sun Jian and the others changed their sitting postures, their faces full of expectation. In the beginning they didn't have much confidence in the battle between Yan Zhike and Qian Ruoyu. After all, not everyone was like Lu Qing, who could amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Actual combat experience still needed time to accumulate. But as Yan Zhike steadied herself and launched a counterattack, purposely showing a flaw to get a chance to compete with Lu Qing's listening skill, they suddenly became excited. During this time, Lu Qing had been practicing listening skill with Yan Zhike every day, never hiding from their presence. They didn't expect it to come in handy. Yan Zhike, a fledgling, could defeat an opponent 2 levels higher than her. Facing an amateur first pin, they were not completely hopeless. Today they might be able to get a victory in their home ground. Without Lu Qing and Lin Ke, we also have the ability to fight. We won't just rely on them. Watching Feng Xiaoquan climbing the stone steps step by step, Yan Zhike quickly panted, trying to recover as much strength as possible. Although she and Qian Ruoyu did not fight for too long in the battle just now, there was no chance for her to use 24 blizzard strikes. However, her body was tense and her mind was in a daze, which would consume her physical strength exponentially. Not to mention that she had dealt with several dangerous situations. Therefore, at this moment, she was more than half exhausted and had to seize the opportunity to take a breather. Feng Xiaoquan saw the girl opposite him with flushed cheeks due to panting and excitement. Her bright eyes were so beautiful that he didn't dare to look directly at her. He quickly closed his eyes, put away all distracting thoughts, and recalled Qian Ruoyu's unwilling and angry expression just now. "Ruoyu, I'm here to avenge you." Thinking of this, he felt a burst of excitement. This was a chance that Jiang Dingyi couldn't get. The referee didn't give them too much time. He raised his right hand and said, "The second round start." With his announcement, the surrounding stands burst into a burst of cheers for Yan Zhike again. Feng Xiaoquan also moved the 2 muscles on his back, like a giant red-crowned crane, and rushed to his opponent. He was so fast that he was in front of Yan Zhike in the blink of an eye. He raised his right hand and put it beside her head as if he was hugging her head. Then he exerted strength in his muscles, shook the air, and chopped out his right hand fiercely. Tiger hug downward chop. Brr. The sound of the wind reverberated like the roar of a tiger. Together with this attack, it was truly powerful. With Lu Qing's analysis and her own judgment, Yan Zhike had long anticipated the enemy's attack and killing move. She didn't panic and shook her right arm, thrusting out her fist like a big spear and hitting the tiger claw from the side. Bang! The moment the 2 of them collided, Yan Zhike took a step back with her right foot and stepped firmly on the ground, neutralizing the power that was much stronger than hers. At the same time, her muscles trembled as she used the yin-yang twist to rebound her right arm. Bah! Just as her right fist was bounced off, Feng Xiaoquan's fist suddenly opened. Using his knuckles as the point of force, a series of crisp sounds burst out, turning the downward chop in tiger embrace into the white crane stretches its claws. This was the killing move of the tiger and crane double form. There was no warning before it was launched, but it was fast and fierce. It was more terrifying than the combination of the finger spear and the tiger fist, and more difficult to defend against. Moreover, it could be followed up with other killing moves. If Yan Zhike hadn't carefully studied his match videos and had a deep impression of this move, her wrist would have been broken on the spot. Her right arm bounced back and her body leaned back. Yan Zhike visualized the scene of a roaring wind and snowstorm in her mind. She pulled out her left leg and kicked towards Feng Xiaoquan's knee. Feng Xiaoquan hooked his toes, twisted his waist, lifted his thigh and bounced his knee. Like a golden rooster standing on one leg, he threw out his right calf and tapped on Yan Zhike's tensed foot. Bang! In the muffled sound, both of them shook at the same time. Yan Zhike took advantage of the force to pull back her leg and stomped down. Her foot pushed inward, allowing the force to surge up through the mountains and over the ridges, converging with the small currents in various parts of her body. Then, using her spine as an axis, she rotated her waist and pulled in her right shoulder. With a loud rumble, she threw out an aggressive blast punch. With the continuous borrowing of force, her punch was not inferior to Feng Xiaoquan's tiger punch. Brutal Blizzard was getting fiercer and fiercer. The combination of her 2 moves was so tight that Feng Xiaoquan had no chance to dodge with the crane steps. He could only activate his shoulder blades and back muscles, and combined with the force under his feet, he clenched his right hand into a beak and pecked at the side of Yan Zhike's blast punch. The crane pecking momentum, 1 peck, 1 hole. Bang! Yan Zhike's right arm bounced back and pushed her strength to the side to avoid the fist. She used her strongest point to meet the crane pecking momentum. Bang. Feng Xiaoquan's right hand bounced back. He couldn't help but shake his hand. After all, the pecking momentum was not as strong as the fist. Yanjika's fist was only a little red, but it was not a big deal. Using the yin-yang twist again, Yanjika bounced back her right arm and punched with her left fist. Her momentum was even stronger than before, like a never-ending blizzard. Bang, bang, bang. This made the cheers in the stands louder and louder. Thousands of people showed the power of tens of thousands of people. After blocking several times, Feng Xiaoquan felt that his strength was gradually falling into a disadvantage. He knew that he couldn't go on like this, so he quickly restrained himself and took a deep breath. His face suddenly turned red and his temples bulged. It seemed that gunpowder was exploding in his body. Using his feet as a cannon, he suddenly punched out. Bang! Their bodies shook at the same time. It was a tie. Under the recoil of each of them, the situation was temporarily stagnant. Yanjika was about to attack again when she suddenly felt that her body was empty. Her muscles were aching and twitching, which made her realize that her physical strength had reached its limit. According to her current condition, it would be difficult for her to perform a complete 24 blizzard strikes, not to mention that she had just fought a fierce battle. Her last few moves were driven by the borrowed strength. Now that the brutal blizzard was interrupted, she naturally couldn't fight again. Seeing that Feng Xiaoquan had recovered, she raised her right hand and made a gesture of surrendering. There was no disappointment on her face. Instead, a faint smile appeared. If I was at my peak, I might be able to defeat Feng Xiaoquan. I'm so envious of Cheng. I need to strengthen my physical strength. Looking at the girl's bright smile, Feng Xiaoquan was stunned. Then he heard the referee's announcement. Round 2, Feng Xiaoquan wins. I won just like that? Seeing Yanjika turn around and leave, Feng Xiaoquan suddenly felt a little lost. But he quickly recovered. He pinched his right arm and gasped for breath, hoping to recover more strength. The suppression of the 24 blizzard strikes and the last blow of the modern blast punch had consumed a lot of his energy. Lu Qing saw Yanjika walking down the ring amidst the cheers. He spread his arms with a smile and gave her 2 thumbs up, praising her for the perfect timing of the 24 blizzard strikes. Her momentum was full of vigor, and every move was at her fingertips. She didn't stick to the rules. Her fighting style could be said to have reached a higher level. Yanjika's eyes slightly curved. She smiled and walked to Lu Qing. When she was about to open her mouth, her thighs suddenly became weak and she stumbled forward. She was really at her limit. With Lu Qing by her side, she naturally didn't have to worry about falling. She only saw Lu Qing sliding over and stretching out his arms to hold her firmly. His chest is so reassuring. As this thought flashed through her mind, the shouts on the stands stopped abruptly. All the spectators were dumbfounded by this scene. At this scene, many male students had a strong idea. Coach, I want to learn martial arts. Okay, everyone is watching. Yanjika blushed and broke free. As a coach, Lu Qing knew the next step was the most important. He didn't say much to Yanjika, only clenched his fist and reached out to her. Yanjika also clenched her fist and bumped it with Lu Qing's. She shouted in a low voice, "Victory!" After the ceremony, she walked to the seats of the home team. Guiqing and Lin Hua had already come to greet her, praising and supporting her. At this time, the 3 of them saw Li Mao pass by with a slightly pale face. Yanjika was about to reach out her right hand and give Li Mao a high five or a fist bump to encourage him, but he ignored her and passed by her. Li Mao is so nervous. Guiqing murmured. Lu Qing also noticed this. His mind raced as he tried to figure out what to do. Nervousness will affect the speed of thinking, but it won't last forever. Li Mao, who is not as nervous as last time, should be able to calm down after a few moves. Can I set a preset program for him like a computer when his thinking is slow? Let him do that without thinking? Fighting is ever-changing. What kind of preset program is suitable? Too simple and useless. Too complex and requires the coordination of thinking. It's a waste of time. While thinking, Lu Qing observed Feng Xiaoquan's every move on the stage. He was rubbing his right arm and wrist. Obviously, the blast punch collision just now was not easy. He was gasping for breath, which indicated that he had used up a lot of energy. In this case, speed and strength would all be reduced. If it were me, an amateur, facing such an enemy, how would I fight? Lu Qing gradually had an idea. When Li Mao was about to pass by him, he suddenly pulled him and whispered, "Don't think about anything later. Remember one thing, slide step to the left, low kick and then punch." "Ah, okay." Li Mao answered a little stiffly. Lu Qing didn't let him go. He said in a low voice, "Repeat it." Left, slide step to the left, low kick, punch to the left, slide step to the left, low kick, punch to the left. Li Mao's memory was not a problem. Very good. If your mind is blank later, use it to replace your thinking and judgment. Lu Qing reminded him again. Li Mao nodded and stepped up the stone steps. Looking at his back, Lu Qing took a deep breath and waited for the battle to start. He had taught him the simplest way. He hoped that there would be no accidents. Chapter 154. Walking up the stairs, Li Mao didn't feel as nervous as last time because this was not an important match. It didn't matter even if he lost. Coach sure didn't even show up. But why am I still a little nervous? Why am I still trembling? Is it because of the thousands of people around me? Is it because of Yan Zhika's outstanding performance that I'm under pressure and don't want to ruin the good situation? Or is there no other reason? Is it because I'm born a loser who can't stand big occasions? Why am I so nervous because of my inferiority? Feeling self-deprecating, Li Mao stood opposite Feng Xiaoquan and saw the referee raise his right hand to announce the start of the match. I haven't adjusted yet. With a buzz, he felt himself tense up again. Although his thoughts didn't become sluggish, he couldn't concentrate. At this moment, a sentence suddenly flashed in his mind. Don't think about anything later. Remember one thing. Slide step to the left, low kick, followed by the forward punch. Slide step to the left, low kick, followed by the forward punch. Li Mao murmured to himself as if he was grasping at the last straw. Feng Xiaoquan stopped gasping for breath. He could feel the obvious nervousness of the enemy in front of him, and he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Good thing it's him. A few days ago, Feng Xiaoquan had thought about Li Mao's performance in the university martial arts competition and was impressed by his stage fright. Therefore he had made up his mind that once he met this opponent, he would seize the opportunity to attack and not give him a chance to recover. It was a gift from God to meet this nervous brother when he was so exhausted. Round 3 start. The referee didn't give Li Mao time to adjust. As soon as he finished his words, Feng Xiaoquan flapped his muscle wings as if he was stepping on ice and approached his opponent quickly and fiercely. Slide step to the left, low kick, followed by forward punch. Li Mao didn't think at all. He followed his instinct and slid to the left to dodge. Then he tightened his thighs, bent his knees and kicked out with a low kick, aiming straight for Feng Xiaoquan's joint. Feng Xiaoquan didn't expect this nervous brother to dodge in time. He had to stop his tiger palm cut and turn to twist his waist and swing his leg to block with a side kick. Bang! When they were feet to feet, Li Mao was like a robot. He instinctively adjusted his muscles and borrowed a little strength. He pulled his right arm back and made a fist. Slide step to the left, low kick, followed by the forward punch. Feng Xiaoquan shook his right arm and punched out with his tiger fist. He did not show any signs of weakness as he met force with force. Bang! Amidst the muffled sound, Feng Xiaoquan felt a soreness in his right arm. He didn't use enough strength and his opponent forcefully knocked his fist away. Damn it! This is the after effect of the fierce fight. He made a prompt decision. Using his left foot as a fulcrum, he swung his right hand to the side and turned his body around. Li Mao's punch landed, and he seemed to have entered the rhythm of his training. His body instinctively swung back and forth and once again he borrowed strength and threw out his left fist, aiming straight for Feng Xiaoquan's wide-open chest. I.T. Such a simple left slide step, low kick and forward punch? However, in the current situation he didn't need to make any complicated analysis, nor did he need to be resolute and decisive. He only needed to use the 24 blizzard strikes skillfully as he did in his usual training. Bang! Feng Xiaoquan twisted his back, rotated his shoulders, clenched his left fist and hammered down. He blocked Li Mao's mountain splitter. Li Mao's mind gradually became clear and his attention was focused. He felt the rhythm of the game was so good. It made him feel like he was back in the practice field. The familiar environment could effectively reduce the tension. He swung his left fist back and let the strength flow into his spine and to the soles of his feet. Then with his back as the axis, he whipped his leg towards Feng Xiaoquan's lower body. Seeing this, Lu Qing was relieved and happy for Li Mao. He didn't stay on the sidelines and went back to the coach's seat. Feng Xiaoquan on the other hand was quite annoyed. Knowing that he was suppressed by 24 blizzard strikes again, he no longer hesitated and gave a whip kick. Then he took a deep breath, his face turned red and his temples bulged. Boom! Feng Xiaoquan seemed to have a gunpowder explosion in his body. He spurted his right fist to counterattack. Li Mao, who gradually got used to the game atmosphere, could make simple and quick judgments. He knew his opponent was exhausted, so he didn't avoid the attack. He wrapped the borrowed strength and hammered down hard. Bang! Both of them shook their center of gravity and took a step back. Feng Xiaoquan took the opportunity to use the crane steps and flashed to Li Mao's side. He clenched his fist into a tiger claw and chopped down. If it had been the Li Mao from a few moves ago, he would have had no choice but to take this attack head-on. But now he lowered his center of gravity as he raised his right arm. Bam! Just as the tiger fist hit his right arm, Feng Xiaoquan suddenly changed his crane beak, and used the force to jump and peck at Li Mao's temple. Li Mao bent his knee and lowered his center of gravity as his right arm was hit. He lowered his body and avoided Feng Xiaoquan's crane beak. At the same time he exerted force with his left foot and turned his body into a cannonball, crashing into Feng Xiaoquan's chest and abdomen. Feng Xiaoquan didn't take it head-on. He stepped on the crane steps and dodged nimbly. He changed his position and attacked again. Within a minute he launched a series of attacks. However, Li Mao, who had already calmed down, seemed to have returned to the dead of winter. He had returned to the days when he had endured the darkness, faced the cold wind, listened to the sound of firecrackers and trained hard. He no longer panicked. Every move he made was full of posture, and his defense was watertight. It was in this month that he really mastered the 24 blizzard strikes. As they fought, Li Mao suddenly found that Feng Xiaoquan's strength had weakened a lot. There was also a sluggishness in his steps. He had reached his limit. Once he made the judgment, Li Mao didn't think too much to avoid hesitation. He immediately slid and pounced on his opponent. Feng Xiaoquan's heart tightened. He abandoned all distracting thoughts. He straightened his spine and wriggled his waist. He raised his hands and turned them into the wings of a red-crowned crane. He fiercely hit Li Mao's temples on both sides. When his palms were about to hit his opponent's raised arms, he suddenly lifted his hips and changed his center of gravity. He assumed the posture of a golden rooster standing on one leg. His right foot kicked out silently like a tiger's stomp. Tiger crane combined attack. Li Mao had just blocked the attack of the red-crowned crane, when he saw the enemy's right foot coming at him. He couldn't resist and had to curl up and roll on the ground. While rolling he felt quite sad. He finally could play normally, but he seemed to have fallen into the enemy's trap and was about to fail. At this moment, Li Mao suddenly realized that Feng Xiaoquan didn't catch up in time and left a gap for him. Was he really tired? Was that the last counterattack? While thinking, Li Mao straightened his back and stood up again. Facing Feng Xiaoquan who had just approached him, he put his feet inward and drove his spine. He fiercely threw a blast punch. Bang! Feng Xiaoquan raised his right arm and blocked in time, but his body couldn't help but shake. Obviously he had reached his limit. Li Mao didn't spare him and threw another punch. Bang! Feng Xiaoquan's hands were weak and his stance was broken. Li Mao's eyes were almost red. He slid closer, leaned his body and fiercely hit him. Feng Xiaoquan leaned back and tried to dodge, but his body was empty. He couldn't maintain his center of gravity and fell down. Li Mao rushed up, tightened his thighs, bounced his knees and kicked out the tip of his foot, stopping at Feng Xiaoquan's throat. Round 3 Li Mao wins. The referee raised his right hand and announced the result. I won. Li Mao couldn't believe his ears. In an instant he seemed to have returned to the university martial arts competition. At that time he failed to live up to everyone's expectations and was easily defeated because of nervousness. Now did I finally win? At this moment, many images flashed in front of Li Mao's eyes. There was Qin Zhonghua's disappointed and bleeding fist, Lin Kei's pain covered with a hot towel, Coach Shi's words of encouragement, his annoyance again and again, the hard training day after day with clenched teeth, the bone-chilling winter wind, the silence in the darkest hours of the morning, and the scene where Lu Cheng and the others carefully took care of his emotions and racked their brains to help him relieve his nervousness. In the cheers of the whole stadium, he couldn't help but turn to look at the seats of Songqing University Martial Arts Club. There Lu Cheng was holding Yanzhika's hand, Yanzhika was holding Guqing was holding Li Xiaowen was holding Lin Hua was holding Sun Jian, and Sun Jian was holding Lin Quebec. When Li Mao looked at them they raised their hands at the same time and shouted, "Li Mao, come on!" Li Mao's eyes turned red and tears flowed out uncontrollably. He knew that he was locked on by the big screen and everyone could see the details, but his vision couldn't be blurred. An 8-foot man was crying like a child at this moment. Chapter 155. Li Mao wasn't a pretty girl like Yanzhika, and he wasn't as famous as Lin Quebec. His classmates only cared about whether he had won or not. They weren't curious about him at all and didn't want to find out more about him. It wasn't until they saw him crying like a child that they started to be surprised and their emotions were aroused. It's just an ordinary preliminaries. Is there a need to cry like this? Some people in the audience were confused and felt that Li Mao's reaction was too exaggerated. There were also some students who suddenly remembered the trash that they had cursed and scolded last year. They recognized the tearful Li Mao and said, "Hey, I know him. Last year, at the critical moment of the martial arts club's group advancement, he was the one who was trampled on like a wooden stake and ruined our absolute advantage. I almost cried because of him. Yes. He's that nervous bro." Some of the students were immediately enlightened. It wasn't until now that they understood why Li Mao was crying. It was a sign that he had drawn a clear line with his past. It was a heavy burden that had been lifted from his heart. It was a sign that he had made up for some of his mistakes. It was a sign that he was grateful to his companions for not abandoning him. It was easy to win against others but difficult to win against oneself. The students who understood the whole story felt a little warm and a little sour. One of them thought of his stage fright and raised his hand shouting loudly, "I'm sorry but I'm sorry but I'm sorry. You can do it, Li Mao." While the audience was crying in surprise and forgot to cheer, this high-pitched voice pierced the silence and rang in many people's ears. The rest of the students who had mixed feelings just now seemed to have received a call. They all raised their hands and shouted in unison, "You can do it, Li Mao." These voices converged into a torrent, driving the whole audience and creating a roar that almost blew the roof off. "You can do it, Li Mao." The tsunami-like cheers echoed in Li Mao's ears, blurring his vision with tears. He reached out and covered his face, murmuring in a low voice, "Thank you, thank you." Feng Xiaoquan climbed up from the ground and looked around in confusion. He didn't know why the audience suddenly burst out with more enthusiasm than before. His heart was sullen and unwilling to accept the result of the previous match. If he hadn't used up so much energy in the previous match, he wouldn't have suddenly felt empty after using the tiger and crane combined attack. There shouldn't have been a pause, which ruined the victory that was so easy to obtain. The reason why he consumed so much energy in the previous match was because his fighting style was too aggressive. He didn't take advantage of the crane steps, and gave Yan Zhika a chance to use 24 blizzard strikes. The reason why his fighting style became aggressive was because he wanted to help his sweetheart get revenge and save her face. Thinking of this, Feng Xiaoquan had nowhere to vent his grievances and unwillingness. He turned his head and walked down the stone steps in a daze, unwilling to stay a second longer. At this moment he realized that Chen Ruoyu was whispering something into Jiang Dingyi's ear. She was very close to him and her attitude was very intimate. His heart and face sank at the same time. He saw Jiang Dingyi stood up like an iron tower and walked towards him. "What did Ruoyu say to you just now?" Feng Xiaoquan couldn't help but ask when they were about to pass each other. Jiang Dingyi smiled slightly and said, "She said Li Mao consumed a lot of energy and asked me to take advantage of my strength and force him to fight and end it quickly." "Take advantage of your strength?" Feng Xiaoquan murmured. The haze between his eyebrows became more obvious. He was angry that he was looked down upon and also sad that his sweetheart didn't like him. When he returned to his seat, he saw Chen Ruoyu's tight face and tight lips. She was nervous, expectant, and a little depressed. His mood suddenly softened and he said softly, "With old Jiang we can definitely win." Chen Ruoyu turned her eyes and looked at him in surprise. "I hope so. You can't lose to the substitute of Songqing University Martial Arts Club." How long had it been since Xiaoquan called him old Jiang? At this moment she suddenly blamed herself. Because of her greed, selfishness, vanity, and hesitation, the two boys who played together since childhood were like strangers. The thought flashed and was quickly thrown to the back of her mind. Her attention returned to the current competition. She wanted to win like never before. Songqing University Martial Arts Club didn't send any main force, even the real coach didn't come. If she and others lost the competition, how could she face Jiang Dong's parents? She formed the Dream Squad, not to enjoy being surrounded and play house like a child. She wanted to prove to those who thought she was spoiled that she could also do it and rely on herself. "I'm not a child anymore. I have dreams too." At Songqing University Martial Arts Club's seats, Lu Qing and the other members cheered for Li Mao in the form of a crowd. Then they let go of their hands and returned to their seats. Sun Jian had just sat down when he suddenly remembered something. He stood up abruptly, walked to Lu Qing and leaned close to him. "Qing, no, Coach Lu. What did you say to Li Mao just now? What secret did you teach him? He actually managed to get over the initial nervousness? I really admire you now. I feel that you have some kind of magical power." You whispered something to Yan Zhika and she won when she just entered the arena. Then you whispered something to Li Mao and he won when he was overly nervous. You also whispered something to him. Why don't you whisper something to me later? Looking at Sun Jian's curious and expectant face and feeling Yan Zhika's gaze, Lu Qing chuckled and said, what I said to Senior Li Mao was, front back up down left right low heavy leg followed by light punch. What the hell is that? Sun Jian blurted out with a blank face. Lu Qing looked at Yan Zhika's confused expression and chuckled, make a move. Make a big move. Stop joking. Sun Jian finally realized that he was fooled by Lu Qing while Yan Zhika gently pinched Lu Qing's thigh. Lu Qing stopped laughing and said, actually it's more or less the same. I think Feng Xiaoquan wants to catch Senior Li Mao's nervousness and will attack first. His right hand has been hit by Yan Zhika twice. Although it won't be injured, it will affect his ability to use force without enough time to recover. So I told Senior Li Mao not to think about anything else. Just slide to the left, kick to the bottom and punch to the right. After a few moves like this, as long as he hasn't lost, Senior Li Mao should be able to recover. Yan Zhika felt proud of what he said and the sweet dimples on her cheeks appeared again. I see. It's quite suitable for Li Mao's situation. But the premise is that your vision is sharp enough, you are experienced enough, and you have a good grasp of Feng Xiaoquan's mind. Sun Jian sighed and admired Lu Qing more and more. Lu Qing said modestly, it doesn't matter if I'm wrong. There won't be a worse result. Yan Zhika empathized with her boyfriend's praise. She quietly lowered her right hand and held Lu Qing's left hand. Lu Qing caught her hand and scratched her palm. Then what did you say to your girlfriend? Sun Jian was still curious. A rookie who just entered the arena for the first time actually won a clean victory after a series of mistakes. I told her that I would lend her my strength. Lu Qing didn't want others to think that Yan Zhika won because of his guidance. He started to talk nonsense with a serious face. This kind of thing should be known by the girl herself. Yan Zhika almost burst out laughing. She was a little touched and opened her right hand, clasping it tightly with Lu Qing's. Really? Sun Jian obviously didn't believe it. Lu Qing laughed and said, of course it's true. This is called encouragement of love. You and senior sister Lin are an old couple, so you won't understand. Sun Jian looked at him disdainfully and nodded slightly, half believing and half doubting. Yan Zhika blushed and hummed, turning her head back to the arena. At this time, Jiang Dingy had already stood in front of Li Mao and the referee had also raised his right hand. Sun Jian didn't return to his seat but just stood beside Lu Qing and watched. Li Mao quickly wiped away his tears. He felt that the heavy burden in his heart had been completely washed away by the crying just now. This cleared up his emotions and made him feel relaxed. I just need to exhaust him. He secretly made a decision. In the competition just now, he was carrying a heavy burden in the battle, so his consumption was more than doubled. Now he was almost an arrow at the end of its flight. The referee waved his right hand. The fourth round start. Jiang Dingy was nearly 1.9 meters tall and his skin was bronze. He didn't look like a young man under 20 years old at all. At this time he closed the distance between them in 2 big strides. His right arm tightened and made a chopping posture in front of him. Li Mao took action immediately. He twisted his waist and shook out his right arm so that his fist was like the tip of a spear to his opponent, making a crisp sound of tearing the airflow. Jiang Dingy's chopping right hand suddenly stopped. It turned out to be a feint to trick Li Mao into attacking first. After that, he directly urged the strength of his shoulder joint and elbow joint and quickly chopped his opponent's wrist fiercely. Earth-cracking palm. Bang. Li Mao's wrist wasn't the strongest point of force. After being chopped by Jiang Dingy, he suddenly felt a sharp pain and withdrew his right hand like an electric shock. But because of this, he borrowed a little strength and slipped to the right side of his opponent. Enduring the pain that hadn't disappeared yet, he fiercely punched Jiang Dingy's waist with his left hand. Jiang Dingy lowered his body and bent his back. His right elbow hit out horizontally and blocked Li Mao's fist in the form of a hilt. Bang. In the dull sound, Jiang Dingy used his elbow as the fulcrum, his arm as the blade and his palm as the tip to make a diagonal chopping. Li Mao held his elbow and bounced his back. He dodged again and came to the back of his opponent. When he was about to launch an attack, Jiang Dingy suddenly twisted his waist and pulled back his leg, sweeping backward and sideways. Bang. Jiang Dingy's kick was so powerful that it kept exploding in the air and fiercely whipped to Li Mao. Li Mao quickly lowered his shoulders and made a stance to block the kick. Bang. Under the collision, Li Mao only felt that his body was weak for a while. He couldn't continue his strength and was swept to lose his center of gravity and staggered to the side. Jiang Dingy pulled back his leg and touched the ground. When he was about to attack, Li Mao, who had just recovered his center of gravity, didn't try to stabilize his body. He kicked his feet and counterattacked. I'm close to the limit. I must exhaust him. Only this thought was echoing in his mind at this time. Facing this kind of hurried counterattack, Jiang Dingy didn't avoid at all. He raised his left arm and blocked Li Mao's right fist. He lifted his left foot and leaned his body. His right hand seemed to be holding a sharp knife and fiercely stabbed to his opponent's abdomen. Li Mao put his left hand close to his body to block, contracted his abdomen and bounced his waist and back. Unexpectedly, he ignored Jiang Dingy's hand and bumped his left arm and left shoulder, trying to penetrate the city wall with a crossbow that was close to its limit. Bah! Jiang Dingy endured the pain and seized the opportunity to hold Li Mao's body. Then he tripped him and lifted him up and heavily threw him to the ground. Thump! Li Mao was dizzy and couldn't stand up for a while. The referee glanced at them and announced the result. The fourth round, Jiang Dingy wins. Jiang Dingy rubbed his left shoulder and looked at Li Mao with complex eyes. He didn't expect that his opponent would fight so hard that he was hit by Li Mao carelessly. Fortunately, his opponent's strength was exhausted and he was not injured. Seeing this, Lu Qing sighed and whispered in Sun Jian's ear, "Senior brother Sun, you are experienced and not afraid of the stage. I have nothing to say. But since you insist, I will say something. First, attack the left side violently." "What's the second?" Sun Jian asked curiously. Lu Qing smiled and said, "The second? F***ck him to death." Sun Jian couldn't help laughing at first. Then he put on a serious face, clenched his fist and growled, F***ck him to death. Chapter 156. F***ck him to death. As the words left his mouth, Sun Jian felt himself brimming with battle intent. Even his emotions were in high spirits. He took a step forward and walked towards the arena, only to see Li Mao struggling to get up. Li Mao shook his head and walked back, swaying unsteadily. When he met Li Mao, who was still a little dizzy, Sun Jian took the initiative to stretch out his fist and said sincerely, "Good job." Li Mao instinctively straightened his back and couldn't hide his smile. He clenched his fist and lightly bumped with Sun Jian's to complete the ceremony. "Senior brother Sun, come on." Sun Jian nodded. He passed by Li Mao and saw the road leading to glory and glory. "This is the last battle of this game. Let me end it. This time, I'm not just going to make a pose." Sun Jian suddenly had some feelings when he went up along the stone steps. He was born in a professor's family. He was promoted to the university where his father studied through the affiliated kindergarten, affiliated primary school, affiliated middle school and key high school. He hardly suffered any setbacks and was never bullied by his classmates. At first, his purpose of learning martial arts was purely to show off in front of his childhood friends. Later, he used it to escape his father's increasingly higher requirements and took the martial arts club as his refuge to get peace and freedom. With such a mentality, of course he wouldn't have stage fright. But on the other hand, he didn't have the tenacity to face difficulties. When he shouted, F***ck him to death, just now, he felt that his gentle and well-educated appearance was torn off and the barbarism hidden deep in his heart was awakened. He had the impulse to challenge the big devil. When he stepped onto the arena and saw the 1.9 m tall iron tower, Sun Jian instantly felt that he was very small and insignificant. He had no choice but to look up at his opponent. It was just like how he usually looked up at his father, who was the leader of his subjects. In his heart, Sun Jian was so high that he could not look up to him but also so fearsome. Sun Jian's frown, seriousness and orders had created a deep shadow in his heart. He couldn't challenge the authority and was unwilling to do as he was told. Then he could only escape. Now he didn't want to be like this anymore. He had to face it eventually. Looking at the tall and mighty Jiang Dingy who seemed to be invincible, he roared secretly, F***ck him to death. Lu Qing didn't know anything about Sun Jian's psychological changes. He was very relaxed now and didn't have too much expectation for the final result. He was already satisfied with the development of today's matches. Yan Zhika had won the match on her first appearance and accumulated experience in dealing with dangerous situations. Li Mao had finally defeated the devil in his heart and obtained the victory he had been dreaming of. What else was there to be dissatisfied with? As for the final victory, it would be the most dazzling jewel at the top of the crown. It would be good to have it, but not having it would not damage the essence of the crown. At this moment, Li Mao returned to his seat amidst the applause and stopped in front of Lu Qing. Lu Qing extended his right hand and clenched it into a fist. You can do it. Li Mao's eyes reddened again. He reached out his right hand, clenched it into a fist, and bumped it with Lu Cheng's. Thank you. Thank you for never giving up on me. Lu Cheng wanted to recall some famous sayings to encourage senior brother Li Mao. If he couldn't remember, he would make one up himself. But the referee on the arena didn't give him the chance. After Jiang Dingy and Sun Jian stood in their respective positions, the referee waved his right hand and announced the start of the last match. Sun Jian had more actual matches than Lu Cheng, so he knew to attack Jiang Dingy's left shoulder, which was hit by Li Mao without Lu Cheng's reminder. When the word "start" reverberated, he suddenly bent down and moved to the enemy's left side quickly with snake steps. Straightening his spine, Sun Jian tightened his right leg and pulled it out, kicking toward Jiang Dingy's left knee. Jiang Dingy was good at strength but not flexible enough. He didn't compete with Sun Jian in body movement. Facing this, he quickly visualized the scene of the ground cracking and the volcano erupting in his mind. The trousers on his thighs suddenly straightened, outlining his well-defined muscles. Bam! A side kick bounced out with earth-shattering momentum, and arrived first, colliding head-on with Sun Jian's whip kick. Bam! Sun Jian swung his right leg back. He felt sore at the place where the leg hit and almost lost his center of gravity. This made him deeply feel the gap in strength between them. Purely speaking of physical strength, he was weaker than Jiang Dingy, but Jiang Dingy also mastered meditation and had a short burst of visualization. Sun Jian gritted his teeth and didn't let the depression affect him. He stepped back with his right foot and straightened his back. Then his right fist suddenly hit Jiang Dingy's left shoulder like a cannonball. He and Li Mao's 24 blizzard strikes were not in meditation and did not have the corresponding visualization method to coordinate. They could only rely on their experience and feelings to barely borrow a little strength during the process. It could be considered as mastery but not mastery. Therefore, once they encountered a situation where the enemy's strength was too great, there would be problems in the connection of the moves. They could not complete the borrowing of strength and could not make the fight more fierce and crazy. Just now, Li Mao was facing Feng Xiaoquan, who was exhausted and weakened in all aspects, so he barely used 24 blizzard strikes. But now Sun Jian obviously couldn't imitate his junior brother. But he also had his own advantages, that was, he could fiercely attack the injured part of the enemy. Jiang Dingy did not move his left shoulder, but simply used his right foot as a fulcrum to turn his body backward. At the same time, he straightened his right hand into a palm knife and fiercely chopped down in front of him. It happened to hit Sun Jian's fist. Sun Jian's right arm bounced back and quickly retracted his attack. Sun Jian didn't feel annoyed, instead he was a little bit happy. Did Jiang Dingy's performance just now mean that his left shoulder was seriously injured and it was almost impossible for him to use his left hand? He slid his feet and went to the left side of Jiang Dingy. Then he opened his left hand and grabbed Jiang Dingy's left hand like a fierce claw. Once Jiang Dingy grabbed Jiang Dingy's left hand, he would immediately break the tendons and dislocate the bones. Sun Jian was different from Li Mao and other members of the martial arts club who came from ordinary families. In the past, he had hired famous teachers to practice martial arts, so there were more than just 24 blizzard strikes. If he practiced the flower-splitting willow hand to a deep level, he could almost make the enemy lose an arm by grabbing and tearing. Jiang Dingy's expression didn't change. He wriggled his spine and bounced his back to the right side to avoid Sun Jian's grab. Sun Jian was happy in his heart, so he directly caught up with Jiang Dingy and attacked Jiang Dingy's left side continuously. Jiang Dingy used his legs to resist, sometimes changed his body shape and sometimes dodged. But he couldn't get rid of Sun Jian and was gradually forced to the edge of the ring. When Sun Jian was about to kill him while he was sick, Jiang Dingy's legs suddenly stopped like two nails firmly nailed to the edge of the arena. His body suddenly turned around with the help of the rebound force. He raised his left arm and turned it into a guandao with the help of visualization. Then he swept it out in a horrible way. At this moment he was like a general who was riding a horse to war, dragging a guandao and being chased by the enemy. Suddenly he tightened the reins of the horse, so that the horse stopped abruptly and raised its front hooves. Then he took advantage of the force to counterattack and unexpectedly cut the enemy who was chasing him. The guandao style. Jiang Dingy had been waiting for this opportunity to cut Sun Jian under his horse for a long time. Sun Jian rushed so hard that he couldn't avoid it. He could only take a breath forcibly and raised his left arm to block on his side. Bang! Jiang Dingy's left hand fiercely cut Sun Jian's left arm. The guandao style, which had been accumulating power for a long time, showed an amazing power and directly whipped Sun Jian into the air. Flying. Yan Zhika held Lu Cheng's left hand tightly and her beautiful eyes were full of worries. She hoped that everything could be perfect today. When she won, the martial arts club could also win the game. Senior brother Sun took the initiative to fly. Lu Qing stared at the ring and comforted the girl. Sun Jian flew out. When he was about to land, he suddenly stretched out his hands and pressed on the ground with the strength of his fascia joints. Bang! His body suddenly bounced to another direction and narrowly avoided Jiang Dingyi's Guandao style, which followed closely. In the bouncing, Sun Jian turned over in the air and landed on the ground with both feet. Then he bounced again to change his position and finally stabilized his center of gravity. Catapult body movement. It was a martial art which was as famous as the modern blast fist and gun finger. It imitated the jump attack of the bullet. In the previous attack, if Sun Jian didn't fly out, his left arm would at least be fractured. It could be seen that the Guandao style was horrible after it broke out. As soon as Sun Jian steadied himself, he saw Jiang Dingyi pouncing on him aggressively. He didn't choose to avoid. Instead, he clenched his teeth and went to him directly. There was only one thought in his mind: I don't believe that your left arm is fine after being hit by Li Mao and using such a fierce Guandao style. I can't give him a chance to recover. Facing this, Jiang Dingyi's face finally changed slightly. They approached each other instantly. Sun Jian ducked and dodged to the side of the enemy. Then he used his hands, wrists, elbows, shoulders and other body parts to attack the enemy directly, as if he was practicing with a wooden man. Bang 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 bang, they kept fighting with each other. The fierce battle made the audience break out in cold sweat. When Sun Jian thought that he was going to be crushed by the enemy's strength, he suddenly found that the enemy's left arm movement was half a beat slower. He didn't have time to think carefully. He pushed his elbow horizontally and took advantage of the situation to attack. His elbow hit Jiang Dingyi's left arm, which was not strong enough, leaving a big gap on the side of his body. Chance. Sun Jian had no time to think carefully about the battle situation. Following his instinct, he straightened his elbow and threw out his forearm with the help of the rebound force and the joint force. Bang! His forearm with his fist hit Jiang Dingyi's ribs on the side. The strength was not too great, but it made the enemy scream and shrink his body suddenly. Sun Jian didn't show any mercy. He blocked the counterattack with his right hand, opened his left fist and caught the enemy. Then he took a step with his right foot and put it between Jiang Dingyi's legs. At this time, there was only one thought in his mind: F***ck him to death. Damn. He suddenly exerted his strength and threw his opponent to the edge of the ring not far away with his right leg as the fulcrum. Thump. Jiang Dingyi fell down with his back on the ground, accompanied by the audience's surprise and shouts. Sun Jian gasped and raised his right hand. He shouted secretly in his heart, "Cool." The referee also raised his right hand and announced the result. Round 5, Sun Jian wins. The final result: Songqing University Martial Arts Club wins. Chapter 157. The spectators who were breaking out in cold sweat heaved a sigh of relief. The whole stadium was filled with thunderous cheers for the long-awaited victory in this martial arts arena. Although they did not prepare trumpets or other items to assist them, they still created a lively atmosphere. Chen Ruoyu was in the midst of it. Her face was extremely ugly. She felt wronged and angry. She wanted to leave without a second more. I'm an adult, not a spoiled child. I have to bear the responsibility for what I did. She bit her lower lip with her white and neat teeth and secretly prepared herself. She didn't turn around and leave but waited for Jiang Dingyi's return. Jiang Dingyi was also quite depressed at this moment. He was unwilling to admit defeat. His meditation was not deep enough and had not reached the level where he could control the details of his muscles. He was unable to forcefully pull back his center of gravity at the crucial moment and dodge. His fighting style was not guerrilla warfare. After being forced into close combat by Sun Jian, the numbness and pain in his left shoulder were magnified to the extreme. This was the cause of his defeat in an instant. If only I was not careless and bumped into Li Mao, he thought in annoyance. He felt that he had no face to face Chen Ruoyu and his footsteps became slower. When he walked back to the Dream Squad seating area, Chen Ruoyu took a deep breath and said, "The main reason for today's loss is me. Dingyi, Shaoquan, if you guys were at your peak condition when facing Sun Jian and Li Mao, your chances of winning would definitely be above 80%. I underestimated the enemy and lost to Yanzhika too quickly. You guys had no choice but to exhaust yourselves in advance, which led to the loss. It's my fault. I apologize to everyone." After hearing Chen Ruoyu's words, not only Jiang Dingyi and Feng Shaoquan, but even Yu Qiao and the other substitutes were stunned. They did not expect the proud little princess to not lose her temper and vent her anger on others. Instead, she started to reflect on herself. Was this considered a little more mature? Feng Xiaoquan came back to his senses and immediately comforted her. Ruoyu, it's not your fault. Our main failure was due to the lack of equal information. Yanjika of Songqing University Martial Arts Club hid her strength too well. No one would have thought that she had already achieved a small success in meditation and reached a higher level in 24 blizzard strikes. Yes, none of us expected this, Jiang Dingyi said. Qian Ruoyu felt better in her heart. She was touched and her eyes were red and about to cry. She took a deep breath, steadied her emotions, and pointed to the other side of the ring. Even if we lose, we don't want to lose face. Let's go over and say hello, lest others say that we don't have a good upbringing. Generally speaking, after the entire battle in the group arena had ended, both parties would have to meet and greet each other as a sign of politeness. However, this would often not happen. Of course, the victor would be happy to do so, but how could the loser be in the mood to do so? Lu Qing imitated the professional martial arts competition he had watched and led the home team to clap their hands towards the stands as a sign of gratitude for their support. Waves of enthusiastic applause and cheers followed. At this moment he saw Qian Ruoyu and the others coming over, so he called Sun Jian, Li Mao and Yanjika to welcome them. Qian Ruoyu glanced at the pure and beautiful Yanjika, then turned to Lu Qing and exhaled. You guys played very well today. Lu Qing was in a good mood and naturally became modest. He pointed at his girlfriend and smiled. It's mainly because we have a secret weapon that caused you to misjudge. Otherwise it would be hard to say who would win. This was the truth. If both parties were to compare one-on-one, their own team was indeed inferior. Yanjika, who was praised, was proud, happy and shy. She glanced at Lu Qing and turned her head to look to the side. Her expression couldn't be hidden from the observant people, which made Yu Qiao, Feng Xiaoquan and the others secretly sigh. Beauties are indeed taken. To Lu Qing, a strong professional ninth pin at 19 years old might not be eye-catching, but to reach such a level in just half a year, people couldn't help but take him seriously. Therefore, they didn't feel like a fresh flower stuck in cow dung. They just felt that it was as it should be. Hearing Lu Qing's honest words, Qian Ruoyu's mood eased a lot, and her self-reproach also lessened a lot. She revealed a faint smile and said, based on your current performance, there's really hope for you guys to advance from the group stage. I wish you guys better and better. Lu Qing also smiled and replied, then we wish you guys better and better and improve in every match. Qian Ruoyu suddenly felt that this person wasn't bad and regained some of her spirits. She thanked him and then led the Dream Squad back to the away team's changing room. Yanjika looked at their backs, rolled her eyes and sighed. Not as delicate as I thought. Speaking of this, she couldn't help but laugh. Also not as turbulent as I thought. She vaguely felt a little regretful that she didn't see the real-life version of the melodramatic emotional entanglement. Yeah. Lu Qing turned his head to look at her and also felt a little regretful. Sun Jian and Li Mao didn't know anything about the gossip of the Dream Squad. After hearing Yanjika's words, they were at a loss. When they saw her and Lu Qing looking at each other tacitly and smiling, as if they had a common little secret, they curled their lips and turned to leave. Let's go back to the changing room. Lu Qing smiled and held Yanjika's little hand, declaring his sovereignty in front of thousands of people. Yanjika blushed slightly, but still generously let him hold her hand. She wanted to use this to get rid of any pursuits that might arise from today's competition. That was too annoying. Songqing University was a school with strict management. Although there was no lack of couples getting close to each other, they usually did so in the woods by the lake or on the streets. No one had ever held hands in front of so many people. Seeing this scene, many of the students had the urge to kick up a fuss. Some whistled and some shouted loudly. The scene suddenly became interesting. Yanjika shyly lowered her head, quickened her pace and hurried to the changing room. When she was about to reach the door, she realized that Lu Qing suddenly stopped beside her. She raised her head and saw Geezer Shi drinking wine at the door. Coach Shi, why are you here? Didn't you have something to do at the last minute? Lu Qing was equally surprised. Geezer Shi chuckled. If I didn't have something to do at the last minute, where would you get the chance to be in the limelight? If I were here, I don't know how nervous Li Mao would be. Besides, I'm old. I've been away from you youngsters for too long. I really don't know how to encourage you guys. Lu Qing and Yanjika suddenly understood Coach Shi's good intentions. Let me borrow your boyfriend for a few minutes. I have something to tell him. Geezer Shi looked at Yanjika with a smile. Yanjika was embarrassed and annoyed by the elder's teasing. She let go of her right hand and ran into the changing room without looking back. Lu Cheng followed Geezer Shi to a secluded corner of the changing room. He smiled easily and said, "I really thought you had something to do at the last minute, master?" He thought they had found the ancient mansion of Longhu Immortal. Geezer Shi laughed and looked at Lu Cheng. "What did you think I had to do?" "Well, didn't you mention last time that some friends came from afar to find the ancient mansion of Longhu Immortal? I thought they finally found it and invited you to help." Lu Cheng was excited and wanted to take this opportunity to inquire. Geezer Shi took a sip of wine and chuckled. "They did find it. Last night they invited me to explore Zhaoshan Lake. In the end it was just a villa with nothing." "Zhaoshan Lake? Isn't it Weishui Lake?" Lu Cheng was stunned. He felt that his master and his friends had mistakenly fallen for it. Geezer Shi looked at him and said, "Do you feel relieved after hearing this?" "Ah." Lu Cheng was stunned at first. Then all the hair on his body stood up and his whole body tightened. "What does master mean? Does he know that I have the Jindan?" Geezer Shi chuckled and said, "Brat, don't be nervous. Humans, unless they are really the best or the second best, grow up with a little bit of luck. The only difference is when you get it. Just like the golden scales, you can only turn into a real dragon after encountering a storm. As your master, I have lived for a long time. What have I not seen and what have I not experienced? Why would I care about your little luck? A little adventure?" Lu Cheng was stunned. He calmed down a little and said, "Master, when did you know?" "I only guessed it last night." Geezer Shi smiled proudly. "Half a year ago, on the day of the martial arts club's welcoming day, I felt a strange power fluctuation near Weishui Lake. Unfortunately, it was a little far and I didn't find anything when I went there. After that, you showed a strong talent for meditation and seemingly unlimited physical strength. You displayed the frost force but awakened the power of flame. These things don't mean much when you look at them alone or put them together. After all, there are plenty of martial artists who awaken their talents later in life. But last night, when we explored the Longhu Immortal's side residence, I found out that he used ice and fire to imitate yin and yang to form the core. I immediately understood. Damn it, that's the only way to awaken the frost flame. Thus, I linked everything together and went to explore the Weishui Lake alone. I found this thing. Hee, stinking brat, I've walked on more bridges than you have walked on. Do you really think you can hide it from me? I'm a martial artist with physical invulnerability. Cultivation is just a reference for me. What do you have to be afraid of?" Geezer Shi fished out a half-burnt and half-frozen white bone carp from his pocket. With a casual shake of his hand, the carp turned into powder. Indeed, the older the ginger, the wiser. Lu Cheng listened with admiration and fear. He confessed, "Master, you guessed right. I was training by the lake and happened to encounter this carp. I got a little of Longhu Immortal's legacy from it." Speaking of this, he couldn't help but ask, "Master, I've improved by leaps and bounds because of Longhu Immortal's legacy. Are you disappointed?" "Fortunately, I've seen the perseverance, temperament and fighting talent you've shown in the past 6 months. I'm satisfied. You're not the kind of person who's frivolous because of an adventure." Geezer Shi nodded slightly and said, "I didn't find Longhu Immortal's villa in Weishui Lake. It seems that there's something fishy there. You can consider this matter after you've completely digested the legacy." Lu Cheng thought for a while and took the initiative to ask, "But digesting it is very dangerous. Every time I awaken it, I'll suffer a backlash. Master, do you have any ideas?" He tacitly agreed that Geezer Shi knew that he had obtained the Jindan. Seeing that his master was kind and not greedy, the worry and haze that had been hidden in his heart for half a year suddenly dissipated. Chapter 158. Backlash. Geezer Shi was unusually serious. He chewed on the word and asked, "Let me ask you something. Do you want to be a martial artist or a cultivator in the future? Once you enter the high-ranked Dan stage, you can't regret it." Lu Cheng grew up watching professional martial arts competitions and was influenced by them day and night. He had a dream and a pure and passionate love. He answered without hesitation, "Of course I want to be a martial artist." More importantly, the inheritance of the cultivators had been cut off. Relying on the records left behind to practice was twice the effort and half the effort. On the contrary, on the road of martial arts, there were teachers to guide you, lovers to consult, and so on. There were tons of relevant materials and companions to learn from and discuss with. "Very good." Geezer Shi praised and said, "Then you must always remember that martial arts is the main thing and cultivation is the secondary thing. Stones from other mountains can be used to improve jade, but it doesn't mean that it can be the jade you want. On the road of cultivation, the most taboo is to be indecisive, unwilling to make a choice, and unable to distinguish between priorities. Okay, tell me how you use it to digest it. Lu Qing said carefully, it can help me recover from fatigue. I use this to constantly squeeze myself and improve my physical strength. Before he could finish, Geezer Shi said unhappily, sure enough. Back then this old man was out of breath because of you. Without waiting for Lu Cheng's explanation, he sighed and said, not bad. You know how to purposefully use the adventure to improve your own ability instead of relying purely on the adventure. With such a temperament and willpower, I didn't take you as my disciple in vain. Hey, continue. Didn't you interrupt me? Lu Qing complained in his heart. After thinking about what he had just said, he said, it can also help me enter meditation and let me quickly conceal spirit and qi. After half a year of hard practice, I can enter meditation skillfully without it. I'm even close to the level of Deshang, but I still can't achieve inward vision. Geezer Shi nodded slightly to confirm but didn't interrupt. In addition to these 2 points, when I use it to the limit, its balance will be broken and a little power will leak out. After the backlash, it will merge into my body and create a supernatural ability. Lu Qing said honestly, the first time it backfired, I almost died in Yanling. It's a bit like the physical invulnerability stage. Geezer Shi said thoughtfully, Longhu Immortal emphasizes the balance of ice and fire. The backlash of awakening the supernatural ability should be similar to the first time. With your current physical condition you can try it. Lu Qing said weakly, I've tried it. It's similar to the backlash of awakening the supernatural ability of flame. The corner of Geezer Shi's mouth twitched. He was both annoyed and amused at the same time. Brat, you've grown up. In philosophical terms, your subjective initiative is really strong. Master, you also know philosophy? Lu Qing evaded the main point and dwelling on the trivial. Do you think I'm illiterate? And since you've already awakened the frost special ability, I'll be able to teach you a few things after your arm recovers. As for the second round of awakening, don't be anxious. Wait until your fleshly body's blood and qi reaches the peak of the body refinement realm, and you'll be able to release and retract it freely before you attempt it. At that time, remember to look for me. With me watching over you, no matter how bad it is, I'll be able to protect your little life. TSK, young people nowadays are so stupid and bold. Lu Qing felt guilty and didn't dare to respond. For the time being, you should digest it at your own pace. Let me think about how to extract the essence and discard the impurities, and integrate the things of cultivation into martial arts. Geezer Shi laughed self-deprecatingly. I have to be thick-skinned and ask for some research materials. Research materials? Lu Qing asked curiously. Geezer Shi said with a faint smile, do you think Longhu Immortal was the only cultivator in ancient times? The related heritage was discovered one after another. That's why we can be sure that this path leads to the same destination as martial arts. But we can't break free from the shackles. Because we live in the mountains all year round, the heritage is inevitably cut off. The military has collected a lot of relics and has a deeper understanding of cultivation. They have also specially selected a group of volunteers to walk this path for observation. If the things on paper are not put into practice, they are just empty talk. Speaking of this, he sighed. But the military's information won't be of much use to you. You want to walk the path of martial arts that incorporates part of the characteristics of cultivation, but it doesn't coincide with their current direction. You still have to see what my old friend can learn from the relics of Longhu Immortal. Don't be too anxious. Focus on training your body to the peak first. Yes, master. Lu Qing answered sincerely. It would be a great gain for him if his master could watch over him the next time he squeezed Jindan. Geezer Shi nodded and resumed his playful look. Well, that's it. Go do what you need to do. Lu Qing was about to turn back to the locker room when he couldn't help but ask, Master, are you really not curious about this? Geezer Shi smiled and said, do you want to hear the truth or the lie? What's the truth? What's the lie? Lu Qing asked with the mentality of getting to the bottom of the matter. The lie is that I've been in physical invulnerability for many years and my path has long been established. The things of cultivation can only be used as a reference or a temporary use. It can't directly promote my improvement. So even though I've cooperated with the military for many years, I still haven't paid much attention to their research on cultivation. Geezer Shi chuckled and said, as for the truth, I'm old and can't take it anymore. Even if combining cultivation with other things can help me advance further, I don't dare to try it rashly. Isn't it better to have an old friend to lead the way and a lively lab rat like you to experience it? What you can get, I have plenty of channels to get. That's true. Hearing the truth, Lu Qing was completely relieved and relaxed. Geezer sure took out a small flagon and took a sip. Humming a Chinese opera, he turned around and left leisurely. Watching his master leave, Lu Qing's mood was like the surface of a lake that calmed down after violent ups and downs. There were ripples in the calm and tranquility. He suddenly sighed and felt an inexplicable sense of loss. To him, the Jindan was the basis for rapid improvement in martial arts. It was the biggest and most unknown trump card and the secret that he was most unwilling to let others know. It made him appear unique and full of confidence. When his master knew about its existence, he understood that similar things left behind by cultivators were rare, but not only did they exist. He seemed to have lost that unique feeling and was no longer full of confidence, so it was inevitable that he felt lost. But from another perspective, the Jindan itself contained too many dangers and uncertainties. With his master, a physical invulnerability mighty one, watching over him, he would be much safer. What made him truly unique and confident was not the Jindan, but the tenacity, perseverance, temperament, confidence, and fighting talent that had been awakened by the Jindan. They were his biggest reliance on his martial arts path. After understanding this, Lu Qing returned to normal and felt relaxed. It was as if he had removed a burden that had been hidden in his heart for a long time. He had removed the worry that he would lose his life due to the instability of the Jindan at any time. He took a step forward, still calm and confident, and walked to the door of the locker room. Geezer sure left the martial arts arena and walked towards the teacher's dormitory. Suddenly he made a sound and patted his head. Look at my memory. I forgot to ask the brat what he got. Forget it. If it's not a natal weapon, then it's an external cultivation elixir. When Lu Qing entered the locker room, Yanjika had just come out of the shower. Her black hair was tied up with a black rubber band, looking fresh and attractive. Li Mao was walking back and forth excitedly, looking for someone to talk to. The sweat on his face had not disappeared. Obviously he had not taken a shower yet. The others were busy with their own things. Seeing Lu Qing come in, Li Mao hurriedly shouted, "Qing and everyone, it's my treat tonight. Let's go to the school restaurant to celebrate." He wanted to express his gratitude and happiness. Yanjika took out the ointment from the cabinet and jokingly said, "Senior brother Li Mao, are you ignoring me and senior brother Sun Jian? We are also the protagonists today. If you want to treat, all three of us should treat." Sun Jian also echoed, "That's right. Li Mao, do you want to steal the credit? I'm the last fighter standing in the arena. I'm the leading fighter. How can I let you treat yourself?" Lu Qing and the others understood that they did not want Li Mao, who was from an ordinary family, to spend too much money, so they followed suit. Li Mao was moved and embarrassed, but finally he agreed. "Let me help you rub the bruise?" Lu Qing walked to Yanjika and took the ointment with a smile. Yanjika pursed her lips and looked at him with a smile. She snorted and said, "Then I'll try your skills." After that she turned around and sat on the edge of the bench. She unbuttoned her cuffs and rolled up her sleeves, revealing a part of her snow-white skin. Perhaps because of her delicate skin, the few bruises and red swollen bruises looked terrible. Lu Qing picked up her wrist and applied the ointment on the red and swollen part of her fist. He rubbed it very carefully. "Not bad." Yanjika bit her lower lip with her white teeth and looked at the whirlpool on top of Lu Qing's head. She smiled shyly. "Of course. I rub it for myself every day after training. My proficiency is already full." Lu Qing answered humorously, feeling relaxed and happy. Yanjika saw Sun Jian, Lin Hua and the others leave one by one. Li Mao also entered the shower room to take a shower. She called in a low voice, "Qing? Yes?" Lu Qing raised his head and looked at the girl. He saw that her eyes were as gentle as water. "Thank you." Yanjika turned her head and looked to the side, whispering. She did not thank him now but before. Lu Qing smiled and said, "Do we still need to say thank you between us?" This was the answer that Yanjika pretended to be innocent before. Now that he used it, it immediately made the girl laugh and pout coquettishly. Lu Qing looked at her and felt that he was unique, again. In this world, the only boy that Yanjika likes is me. Chapter 159. In the spacious changing room, a young girl wearing a white martial arts suit with black edges sat with her hands on both sides of her body. Her quiet expression of shyness and happiness, and the boy who was crouching in front of her with his back bent as he carefully applied ointment on her body. Together they formed a picture of beauty and youth. Their silent gazes from time to time was the finishing touch. Unconsciously, Lu Qing rubbed away all the bruises and swelling. He reluctantly pointed at the girl's left foot. "I remember you fought with Feng Xiaoquan with your foot. You should have some bruises, right? Ah. Yenjika seemed to wake up from a dream. She quickly withdrew her foot and lowered her head shyly. No, I'll do it myself when I get back. She didn't wait for Lu Cheng's reply. She blinked and asked, do I look normal now? Lu Cheng glanced at her and smiled, much better than just now. While speaking, he gently put down the girl's right trouser leg carefully. Yenjika looked at him with a faint smile. She picked up her phone and looked at it again. Then let's go back. You've recovered, but I haven't. Lu Cheng didn't dare to stand up, so he just squatted and laughed. I've always had an illusion that you shouldn't be associated with things like drying quilts, washing clothes, and cleaning. Little fairies should stay away from the mundane world. Yenjika burst into laughter. Which girl lives in a vacuum? If I don't wash my clothes myself, should I wear them and throw them away? Do you want to help me wash them? That's fine too. Lu Cheng smiled and said seriously. Yenjika rolled her eyes and said, you're a rough man. Most of the time you just rub your clothes. I don't feel safe washing them for you. I'll teach you later. Speaking of this, she suddenly paused, feeling a little shy and sweet. Am I making a promise for a long, long time in the future? Feeling a little tipsy, she suddenly thought of a sentence she once read. Young people always make empty promises. When they were young, they didn't understand the length of time, the ruthlessness of time, the difficulties of the world, and the fickleness of human feelings. They always thought that promises and vows like a lifetime could be easily fulfilled. Yenjika, who was not yet 19, suddenly felt a little sentimental. Sure. Lu Cheng didn't notice the twists and turns in Yenjika's mind and agreed happily. He always felt that it was a wonderful thing to have Yenjika's company, even if it was just housework. Yenjika gazed deeply at him and pursed her lips. Then you better remember what you said today. I remember it in a notebook. Lu Cheng laughed. He always believed that a good memory was better than a bad pen. Feeling the abnormality that had not completely disappeared, he quickly started a new topic. Cool, how about going to the Songqing Ocean Aquarium tomorrow afternoon? Then he could go to the third place he had visited to enjoy the delicious food. The distance between the two places was less than 15 minutes. Sai, now that we're officially dating, we don't have much time to explore new areas. Whenever we have free time, we want to stick together. You really can't be both loyal and filial. Sai, that's a weird way to describe it. Yenjika blinked and said apologetically, I'm afraid I can't. I have to go to Tiantong Taoist Temple tomorrow afternoon. Lu Cheng looked at her blankly. Why didn't she mention this before? I just heard it from my brother. Yenjika pursed her lips and said, after he was injured, he moved to Tiantong Taoist Temple to recuperate. The environment there is good and the air is fresh. The abbot is an old friend of my uncle in Songqing. It's a good place for him to recuperate. Well, an elder in my family knows that he's injured and is passing by. He plans to visit Tiantong Taoist Temple and wants me to go there too. The Ocean Aquarium can only wait until next week. Actually, I don't like this kind of gathering. It's always a little depressing to chat with unfamiliar elders. While talking, the girl felt wronged. She wanted to stay with Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng was disappointed when he heard that. But after seeing Yenjika's grievance, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration and said with a smile, then I'll go to Tiantong Taoist Temple tomorrow afternoon. Yenjika didn't react for a while. Lu Cheng laughed and said, let's go to Tiantong Taoist Temple on a date. Anyway, the scenery there was good. He heard that the food in the temple was good too. Who wants to go on a date with you? Yenjika said coquettishly. Then she asked, but I can't accompany you in Tiantong Taoist Temple. It's so boring to let you wander around there alone. Lu Cheng answered with confidence, you can go in and chat with your elders and cousin for a while. Then you can find an excuse to come out. They can't stop you from going to the temple and climbing the mountain, right? You can go back at dinner time. I'll find a place to settle it myself. Yenjika was in the honeymoon period. How could she be willing to waste a rare weekend like this? Hearing that, she was quite moved. After thinking for a while, she said, okay. Anyway, there's a generation gap between my uncle and us young people. There's nothing to talk about. Then it's decided. Lu Cheng clapped and smiled. Why did your cousin move to Tiantong Taoist Temple to rest? Doesn't he need to go to class? Yenjika sighed and smiled helplessly. He said that he can understand the curriculum content by self-study now. Until now, she realized that Lu Cheng had been squatting. His posture was very awkward. She was puzzled and asked, why didn't you stand up? If I stood up just now, you would have called me a hooligan. Lu Cheng rejoiced. He adjusted his pants and stood up slowly. I was too engrossed in the conversation and forgot about it. It shouldn't be obvious. Yenjika looked at him suspiciously. I always feel that you are hiding something from me. What were your hands doing just now? My pants were a bit crooked. I was adjusting it. Lu Qing lied through his teeth. He reached out his hand and said, go back. Otherwise, someone is always afraid that I'll become a big pervert. Yenjika was amused by his words. She gave Lu Qing her hand and let him pull her up. Then she said in a small voice, come do yes. After parting with Lu Qing, Yenjika carried the bag and walked back to the dormitory with light steps. When she opened the door, she saw Li Liantong, Shi Xiangyang and Zhong Yanru looking at her quietly. They looked like they were going to interrogate her. What are you guys doing? Yenjika asked in surprise. Li Liantong sneered. You're eating and forgot to wipe your mouth. Ah. Yenjika was shocked and quickly wiped her mouth. Didn't Qing say it was normal? I've also checked it myself. Li Liantong suddenly laughed and said to Shi Xiangyang and Zhong Yanru, see? He tricked you out. Quick, call me daddy. What are you guys betting on? Yenjika was embarrassed and angry. I bet that you and Lu Qing must be in full swing. They didn't believe me and put their dignity on the line. If they lose, they will call me daddy. Li Liantong smiled proudly. Shi Xiangyang and Zhong Yanru were both amused and angry. They first called daddy in grievance and then looked at Yenjika with a disappointing look. How can you let Qing get what he wants so easily? Yenjika's face was pink. She said stubbornly, I didn't admit it. I just touched my mouth casually. Li Liantong laughed. Even if I didn't trick you, I'm sure. Didn't we go to cheer you on? After the competition, we wanted to take a photo with you, Heroine Yen, so we went to the locker room and waited. We waited and waited. When everyone else had left, you and Lu Qing still hadn't come out. A man and a woman in a room together and you are an official couple. As long as he is still a man, he will definitely have bad thoughts. If you don't cooperate, he will definitely come out soon. How is it possible that the locker room door didn't open again after 10 to 20 minutes? Yenjika was speechless. Her face was burning with embarrassment. She couldn't wait to crawl into bed and hide under the blanket and never talk to Dirty Tong again. See, you admitted it. Li Liantong spread her hands proudly. Zhong Yanru saw that Yenjika was so embarrassed that her heart softened. She quickly changed the topic. It's natural for me to kiss my boyfriend. What's there to say? Before she could finish her words, Yenjika slid close to her and covered her mouth with her hand. Her delicate face was as red as a big piece of red cloth. Compared to Dirty Tong, Ruru's name was more lethal. The girls laughed and joked for a while. Shi Xiangyang panted and said, Okay. Didn't you want to take a photo with Heroine Yen? Seize the opportunity when she hasn't changed her clothes. I'll be the first. Li Liantong jumped to Yenjika's side, held her hand and posed. At the same time she said with emotion, You look so beautiful when you wear the martial arts suit. You make my heart beat so fast. I wonder if I should take you back from Lu Qing. Yenjika pursed her lips and smiled. First you have to beat him, Li Liantong complained. Then I can only settle for the second best. Find a boyfriend who is good at martial arts. That will make me feel very safe. Not really. Many people who practice martial arts have bad personalities and bad tempers. They will make you feel even more insecure. Don't find a boyfriend for the sake of finding one. Yenjika thought for a while and said. Li Liantong was stunned. I'm just a love-struck fool. You don't have to be so serious. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Shi Xiangyang raised her phone and shouted. Click. The beautiful scene froze on the screen. While they were taking photos, Lu Qing was strolling on the street toward his own dormitory. He was recalling the beautiful moment just now and sighing from the bottom of his heart. He thought that since his master knew about his Jindan, he might as well take the opportunity to confess to Yenjika. However, there were too many people in the locker room at the beginning. Besides, he was intoxicated by the kiss and completely forgot about it. He couldn't find a chance to tell her. When they parted, he wanted to pluck up his courage but felt that it was not the right time. I'd better tell after I've digested the Jindan? Lu Qing thought. He vaguely understood that on one hand, this decision was to keep it a secret. On the other hand, he liked Yenjika so much that he was afraid that this was a dream that he would wake up from. He felt a little guilty and not confident enough. He always felt that he was not good enough for this girl. Therefore, he had to work hard to improve himself so that one day he could confidently and frankly tell her everything. Back in the dormitory, he sat in the living room, chatting with Yenjika while looking at the pictures and corresponding introductions that he had downloaded earlier. Hey Qing, you're taking marine biology as an elective? Kai Zhongming passed by behind him and glanced at the content on his phone. Lu Qing smiled and said, "No, I'm doing homework for next week's date." Humph. Kai Zhongming raised his middle finger to show his disdain. The next morning, Lu Qing was delighted to find that because of the awakening of the power of frost, his physical quality had improved in a short time. The injury on his right arm was healed one day earlier and he could do restorative training now. In other words, he could put into practice the Thunder Roar Zen technique that he had been practicing for the past few days. Chapter 160. The grass by the lake grew long, the leaves were green, and the smell of spring permeated the thin mist of the morning. Lu Qing breathed in the refreshing air and jogged to the place where he usually trained while carrying the items he would bring to the martial arts club later to complete the preliminary warm-up. The recovery of his right arm made him feel light and refreshed. He couldn't wait to perform the skills of Thunder Roar Zen that he had comprehended. When he arrived at the destination, Geezer Shur was already waiting there. Seeing his running posture, he was slightly surprised and asked, "You're all healed?" "Yes. Maybe it's because of the awakening of the power of frost, which stimulated my body and made it stronger." Lu Qing explained with a smile. Geezer Shur clicked his tongue and said, "You're really good at not playing by the rules? I was going to see your power of frost today and figure out its characteristics so that I can perfect what I'm going to teach you after your arm recovers. I didn't expect you to be fine today. Forget it. You still have Thunder Roar Zen to practice. You're not in a hurry. Show me your power of frost first." "Yes, master." Lu Qing put the bag next to the tree and then got into a good posture to operate the cold current in his body. Bam. He shook his left arm and slapped out with his palm, imprinting it on the tree. During this process, Geezer Shur's eyes were suddenly covered with a layer of ice blue and almost white, as if they had turned into a crystal-clear ice soul. They quietly reflected everything around them. Although they couldn't see through clothes or flesh, they clearly outlined the tracks of things that affected each other and showed the details contained in them. Seeing the white frost palm print disappear in a flash after Lu Qing withdrew his hand, Geezer Shur nodded slightly and said, "Okay, I have a general understanding of it. I'll teach you tomorrow after thinking about it. You can start other exercises." Lu Qing said okay, but he didn't rush to practice Thunder Roar Zen. Instead, he stood still step by step, practiced the set, quenched his body, and practiced 24 blizzard strikes as usual. His right arm had just recovered, so it was still in a fragile stage. If he didn't move it, warm up, and adapt to the feeling of tempering, he would only hurt it again if he directly used Thunder Roar Zen. And if he hurt the same part of his arm repeatedly, it would easily become a habitual injury, which would be difficult to completely heal. Therefore, Geezer Shur's initial assessment of his injury was that it would take about 2 weeks for him to return to normal. 5 days of recuperation for his injury to heal, followed by more than a week of restorative training. Only then would he be able to compete in the challenge tournament again without any hidden dangers. Pop, pop. The crisp sound of explosions in the air continued. Lu Qing performed the 24 blizzard strikes over and over again. Finally, he felt that his right arm belonged to him again. Every muscle adjustment and every detail of exerting force were all under his control. After finishing the rest of the training, Lu Qing took a short rest. He closed his eyes and stood still. First, he recalled the skills of Thunder Roar Zen, and then visualized the scene of thunderclouds and thunderbolts. In the rumbling sound, he controlled his body. According to the passive experience last time, he tightened the muscles of his hands, forearms, upper arms, shoulders, and back one by one as if he was compressing them. Then he exerted force under his feet and let the violent rebound pass through his ankle joint, knee joint, and corresponding muscles to his waist and hip. Then he pushed his left arm purely through the rotation of his spine to punch out. When he was close to the target in the void, Lu Qing's tightened muscles all opened up. Like the explosion of a cannonball, the air was torn apart and a low sound was heard. Bang! After the punch, Lu Qing's body trembled, but he didn't feel any obvious vibration. His attempt at Thunder Roar Zen failed. Not tight enough, not compressed enough, and the rhythm is wrong. Lu Qing didn't feel annoyed. Instead, he felt that it was natural. Even if he found the trick in the threshold, it was not easy to master a martial art. Trial and error were inevitable. Bang, bang, bang. He continuously punched with his left and right hands. He failed again and again and tried again and again. With his physical strength, sweat gradually appeared on his forehead and back. If it weren't for the Jin Dan, he would have to wait until the next day to practice again. But these failures were not completely useless. They allowed him to eliminate his mistakes little by little, and he got new feedback to confirm his adjusted ideas. he felt that he had stepped on the threshold. After 4 or 5 days of training, Lu Qing tightened his muscles, put his feet inward, and shook out his right arm with the spring of his tailbone and the strength of his back. He clenched his fist and punched down. Boom. In his mind, lightning clouds were rolling and thunder was roaring. Together with the opening of the tightened muscles of his hands, forearms, upper arms and shoulders, etc. Bang. The air in front of Lu Cheng's fist seemed to be hit by a bomb, and there were invisible ripples spreading out in circles. Phew. Okay. Lu Cheng exhaled a long breath and felt some vibration in the opposite direction. Geezer Sure had been watching from the side, and occasionally gave Lu Cheng some pointers, which made Lu Cheng feel enlightened. At this moment, he said with a grumpy smile, "Only you can practice in such an abnormal way. But don't go too far. Your right arm is still weak. Well, you've got the beginner of Thunder Roar Zen. Practice a little more and you'll be able to fight." After that, he walked away slowly with his hands behind his back. When he reached the long bridge, he cursed, "This bastard is not human. That thing will be exhausted by him sooner or later." Lu Qing didn't notice his master's sarcasm behind his back. He devoted himself to practicing Thunder Roar Zen, so that he could turn that feeling into instinct as soon as possible. Bang, bang, bang. He punched with his left hand and hammered with his right hand, creating continuous vibrations like a horrible human-shaped beast. After a long time he finally stopped. He pinched his right arm and decided to stop. He took out a towel from the bag and wiped his sweat. Then he started the last training, which was to improve his endurance. After hiding the bag, he started to run along the lakeside, pushing himself to the limit. While running, he suddenly saw a familiar figure. Li Mao was standing by the lakeside, practicing his stance with his eyes closed. "Senior brother Li?" Lu Qing approached curiously and shouted. Li Mao opened his eyes and laughed heartily. "Cheng, we meet again. It's because you rarely practice in the morning?" Lu Qing joked. Li Mao smiled and said, "I don't have your abnormal stamina. 4 hours of special training has taken a toll on my body. If I practice in the morning again, I'll get tired and hurt sooner or later. But after yesterday's battle, I feel that I've vented a lot of things in my heart. It's rare for me to experience peace and harmony. So I want to try to practice still stance and see if I can catch the inspiration and succeed in concealment of spirit and qi." Good. Lu Qing praised and encouraged him. "There's hope." Li Mao nodded and smiled. "Actually, I met senior martial brother Sun Jian just now." "He also started to practice in the morning?" Lu Qing asked in surprise. "Sun Jian doesn't seem like such a person. He's really just playing with martial arts." "No, senior brother Sun Jian is studying and memorizing books. He said he wants to go back to Huahai with senior sister Lin after graduation and work there." Li Mao explained. "So that's why." Lu Qing suddenly understood and then waved his fist. "Then let's do our best together." "Do your best." Li Mao also waved his fist. When he turned around and continued to run, Lu Qing suddenly recalled the scene of the celebration dinner last night. Li Mao held a beer glass and looked around with slightly red eyes. "I'm not good at saying emotional words. During this time I owe you all a thank you. Well, now I'll use the lyrics of an old song to express my thoughts. A sentence, a lifetime of love, a glass of wine." After singing this sentence, he finished the beer in his hand in one gulp, 3 glasses in a row. Tiantong Taoist Temple was located at Mount Shaoheng in the western suburbs of Songqing. The environment was quiet and secluded, and martial arts were passed down through generations. It was spring and many tourists came for a walk on the weekends, which added a lot of popularity to the ordinary Taoist temple. However, it didn't detract from the quiet and cold atmosphere of the place. "I'm going to the side yard. You can walk around by yourself." Yan Zhika looked around cutely and reminded Lu Qing, "Let's talk on QQ." Eh. Lu Qing shook the phone in his hand and watched the girl enter the side yard. Then he put his hands in his pockets and began to stroll around leisurely, breathing in the fresh air that cleared the mind and the smell of incense. After slowly admiring the Taoist statues in the front and side halls, he stepped into the main hall and saw the statues of the 3 pristine ones standing in front of him. Heavenly Lord Yuanshi stood in the center with a crown on his head, looking majestic and solemn. Heavenly Lord Dao De stood on the left with white hair and a natural look. Heavenly Lord Lingbao stood on the right with an elegant crown and a fierce aura. They looked down from high above. Together with the slightly spacious main hall, they set off a deep and solemn feeling that made the visitors couldn't help but bow. Very imposing. Lu Qing sighed and decided that since he was here, he might as well burn some incense. He turned around, took out his wallet and bought 3 incense sticks. Then he walked to the stove and bowed to Heavenly Lord Yuanshi, silently reciting the words, "Family is safe, love is long, and martial arts is successful." After doing all this, he put the 3 incense sticks into the stove and bowed again. After leaving the main hall, he walked to the backyard with the mentality of a tourist. Just as he turned the corner, he saw a group of people gathered there and heard the continuous sound of punches and kicks. A fight. Lu Cheng's curiosity was piqued. He walked through the crowd like a fish and came to the front. He saw 2 figures fighting fiercely in the small square paved with bluestone. A middle-aged Taoist was the referee. Just as he stood still, he saw a young man in a black martial arts suit lower his waist and lower his hips, wriggling the muscles on his back, and using his right arm as a spear, he stabbed forward. This seemingly ordinary attack made Lu Cheng feel like his opponent was in an ancient battlefield, holding a spear and sprinting on a horse. Nice. He couldn't help but shout. His opponent's back muscles seemed to be in a perfect state. He could be considered a rare expert among professional ninth pin fighters. Bam. After one attack, the young Taoist opposite the man in a black martial arts suit broke his stance. I lost. The young Taoist didn't struggle and shook his head with a bitter smile. The man in a black martial arts suit didn't seem to be satisfied. He looked around and said, "Who else wants to fight with me? Now that the Taoist is the referee, let's do it." Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat. He was eager to have a try. His Thunder Roar Zen had finally started. He really wanted to try out actual combat. As for his weak right arm, he could use it to defend. At this time, the man in a black martial arts suit with thick eyebrows and big eyes shouted again, "Who else wants to fight?" Lu Cheng exhaled and walked out of the crowd. He took off his clothes and said with a smile, "Me." Chapter 161. Seeing Lu Cheng coming out, the man in black martial arts suit, who was worried about not having an opponent, did not hide his joy. He pointed in front of him and said politely, "Please." It was the warm spring season. After taking off his thin coat, Lu Cheng was left with only a woolen shirt inside. It was not as loose as his training suit and was somewhat restrained. However, he did not care too much about it. After all, it was just a friendly match, not a challenge tournament where the goal was to win. This was more like the daily sparring in the special training. The only difference was that there was a referee, so he could practice his new martial arts without worry. After reading so much news, he knew a lot of tricks. He carefully took out his phone and wallet from his coat and stuffed them into the pockets of his casual pants. Then he handed the clothes to the little Taoist beside him. "Don't worry. They are all Taoists of Tiantong Taoist Temple. They won't take your phone and wallet. You can run away, but the temple won't." The man in black martial arts suit frowned. "You will affect your leg movements. It's okay. It's just a competition." Lu Cheng moved his body and said with a smile, "If it was a challenge tournament, I wouldn't dare to fight. After all, my right arm is temporarily weak and can only be used as a support. Who would use one arm to fight a strong fighter of professional ninth pin?" Besides, the surrounding audience was sparse. It seemed that they didn't know him or his opponent. If he won, there would be no sense of achievement. If he lost, it would be even less important. The man in black martial arts suit stopped persuading him. He observed Lu Cheng's movements and asked, "Friend, what's your rank? Amateur or professional?" Only by knowing the opponent's level could he decide how much strength he could exert. A competition like this was meaningless after 2 or 3 moves. Lu Cheng didn't want to play dumb. He said frankly, "Professional ninth pin." Probably. The man in black martial arts suit heard this and became excited. "Good. I didn't expect him to be a master. Now I can fight to my heart's content." Well, judging from his appearance, his chi and blood are not strong enough to become fierce. He should have just entered professional ninth pin. After moving his body, Lu Cheng stood in front of the man in black martial arts suit. They were about 4 meters apart. The middle-aged Taoist laughed. He didn't wave his hand like an official referee. He just shouted casually, "Begin." Lu Cheng was about to shift his center of gravity and flash to the side of the man in black martial arts suit so that he could perform the Thunder Roar Zen in the best way. However, he suddenly saw his opponent bend his legs and shake his body. He leaped forward as if he was riding a 1,000-mile horse. Taking advantage of the horse's momentum, he fiercely shook his right arm and stabbed at Lu Cheng. His leap was as quick as a clap of thunder, so fast that it was like a galloping horse. His punch carried the might and terror of a high-speed collision. Even with Lu Cheng's current fighting mentality, he couldn't help but feel that his opponent was invincible and unstoppable. "Good," he muttered to himself. He calmly gave up on the idea of dodging in a hurry. Suddenly, he pushed his feet inward and lowered his waist into a sitting position. Pop! Tiny cracks appeared on the bluestone ground. The violent force was channeled to Lu Cheng's left arm through his legs and back, allowing him to throw out a vigorous blast punch. At the same time, he skillfully tightened the muscles in his hands, forearms, upper arms and shoulders. Thunder Roar Zen, attack against attack, breaking hard with hard. When the two fists just collided, the thundercloud in Lu Cheng's mind suddenly struck down a bolt of lightning, bursting out with a deafening thunder. Boom! Lu Cheng's tight muscles all opened up, giving off an explosive force in an instant. The first strike. Bang! His and the man in black martial arts suit's fists seemed to be frozen in the air for a moment. There seemed to be circles of ripples spreading out around them. Crack! The man in black martial arts suit took a step back and crushed a bluestone. He only felt that his head was buzzing and his chi and blood were tumbling. His body felt as if it was hit by an iron hammer. There was no part of his body that didn't feel uncomfortable. Tremor force? He has mastered tremor force? Fortunately, I used all my strength in the first strike and offset a lot of it. Otherwise, the effect wouldn't be so ordinary. While the man in black martial arts suit was in shock, Lu Cheng also took a step back. He was forced to take a step back by his opponent's tremendous force like a horse charging at him. The bluestone ground where he landed had a spider web of cracks. His strength is indeed above mine. The thought flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. Lu Cheng took a deep breath and pounced on him fiercely again with the help of the rebound force. Taking advantage of his opponent's slight delay due to the shock, he swung his left arm again and tightened his muscles. The second strike of Thunder Roar Zen, unforgiving. Seeing this, the man in black martial arts suit endured the discomfort and took a deep breath. He stamped his feet and his temples suddenly bulged. It seemed that there was a flame in his body that broke out automatically and disappeared in the opposite direction. With this push, he threw out his right fist with a snap. Bang! The two fists collided. Lu Cheng's thunder roar sounded again, like an interrogation. The man in black martial arts suit shook his body, churned his chi and blood, and shook his muscles, fascias and joints. Again. Lu Cheng shouted secretly. He moved his right arm and beat the drum as if he was practicing in the morning. Another strike of Thunder Roar Zen. The man in black martial arts suit knew that this kind of vibration force required constant control of the muscles in his body, which consumed a lot of physical strength. It was impossible to beat it continuously. Therefore he didn't panic. He clenched his teeth and visualized a giant frog swallowing and spitting at the moon. Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. His internal organs seemed to be wriggling and making a loud sound to offset the vibration of his body. He raised his left arm in time to block Lu Cheng's right fist. Boom. His mind was buzzing as if there was thunder exploding. His chi and blood were churning so much that he wanted to vomit. However, he firmly held on to one idea in his heart and persevered. His opponent should have reached his limit, right? Good. Lu Cheng praised secretly and swung out his left arm again. The fourth strike of Thunder Roar Zen. The man in black martial arts suit showed a rare look of astonishment. He could only summon his remaining strength to resist the vibration with the wriggling of his internal organs, muscles and fascias. He forced himself to raise his right arm. Bang! The right arm of the man in black martial arts suit was forcibly opened. His internal organs were all shaken and he lost control of his chi and blood. His muscles and joints were trembling but he could barely exert strength. Still not falling? Lu Cheng's expression was solemn. He tightened his right arm and threw another seabed burst punch at his opponent's lower abdomen. The fifth strike of Thunder Roar Zen. Let's see how many times you can block. Bang! The man in black martial arts suit lowered his waist and stretched out his arms to block the blow. However, the sudden explosion made him feel like he was hit by a bomb. His whole body was shaken up and he tasted something sweet in his throat. He was almost injured because of the churning of his chi and blood. He felt as if his body was a large bell that had been struck 5 times with a mallet. His muscles, fascia, joints, blood, bone marrow and internal organs were all shaking with a clanging sound. His footsteps became unsteady as he staggered backwards, almost falling down. Lu Cheng stopped. He felt that the 5 consecutive strikes of Thunder Roar Zen were so satisfying that they could be described as unreasonable. Not convinced? Then let's do it again. Of course it was only him. If it were another professional martial artist, even if his chi and blood were at the peak, he could only hit 3 or 4 times at most. He felt the expansion, contraction and rotation of the Jindan in his body. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you." The man in black martial arts suit steadied himself and wanted to say something. However, he couldn't open his mouth because of the churning of his qi and blood. Lu Qing smiled and didn't say anything. He took back his coat and walked out of the crowd. He continued to wander around Tiantong Taoist Temple. After 10 minutes he received a message from Yan Zhika. The girl said with an evil smile, "I'm coming out. Come and pick me up." Lu Qing was in a good mood. He put his phone back in his pocket and turned back to the entrance of the side yard. When he arrived at the gate of the front hall, he happened to see Yan Zhika walking out of the side yard with a fashionable young man beside her. "A relative? Cool, let's go hiking, okay? The scenery here is pretty good." Xie Tianke invited her ingratiatingly. Yan Zhika looked around and didn't answer. Suddenly her eyes lit up when she saw Lu Qing at the gate of the front hall. She smiled and said, "My boyfriend is here. You can find someone else to climb the mountain." She didn't wait for a response. She waved goodbye and trotted to Lu Qing with light steps. Lu Qing walked up and held the girl's delicate hand. He asked in a low voice, "Who is that?" Yan Zhika didn't turn around. She said pitifully, "A child of a family friend of mine. When I was young I called him brother. This time his family came with my uncle. It's super embarrassing." A blind date?" Lu Qing asked with mixed feelings. "Not really. We just happened to meet. Hey, he confessed to me 2 years ago. So it's a little awkward to see him. Hey, why can't we be good friends?" Yan Zhika sighed. Then she rolled her eyes and looked at Lu Qing mischievously. "Qing, are you jealous?" "No." Lu Qing blushed and hurriedly denied. Yan Zhika chuckled and seemed to be very happy. She said with shallow dimples, "I'm still young. My parents don't want me to date in college. There won't be any blind dates in the next few years. When we get there, I'll take you back directly." She stopped abruptly and looked to the side with a slight blush. "Boyfriend?" Xie Tianke stared blankly at the back of Yan Zhika and Lu Qing walking hand in hand to the front hall. He felt a sense of loss, bitterness and unwillingness. The childhood sweetheart that she had watched grow up was snatched away just like that? Could this little girl has a boyfriend? At this moment, a low voice woke him up. He turned his head to look and found that his father was standing behind him at some point in time. He muttered blankly, "Dad?" Xie Qingzhen was slender and elegant. He chuckled and said, "I came out to burn incense and happened to see you. Tianke, why are you so depressed? Is this all that a man can do? So what if Ku has a boyfriend? You have to show her your strengths and work hard to make yourself more outstanding. Sooner or later she will compare you to her. How many boyfriends in college can last until the end?" Xie Tianke nodded thoughtfully. When he was about to express his determination, he suddenly saw Xie Tianshu in a black martial arts suit coming back. His brother was a typical martial arts fanatic. After arriving at Tiantong Taoist Temple, he did not do anything else but went straight to the Taoist priest. However, he could not catch up with his brother's martial arts level. "What's wrong?" Xie Tianshu saw his brother's expression and asked casually. Xie Tianke sighed and pointed to the front hall door. He said in a low voice, "Ku has a boyfriend." "Boyfriend?" Xie Tianshu looked over and was stunned. He blurted out, "Him? I just had a match with him." Xie Qingzhen and Xie Tianke were stunned. They looked at Xie Tianshu blankly, waiting for him to continue. Xie Tianshu took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "I lost." Chapter 162. Lost? After a short silence, Xie Tianke asked subconsciously, "Brother, how much strength did you use?" He knew that when his elder brother was sparring with others, he would use different forces according to the opponent's strength. There were many examples of him failing miserably because of this. Controlling one's own strength and suppressing one's own level could be more troublesome than dealing with the enemy. Full strength. Xie Tianshu showed a bitter smile. He is of professional ninth pin. How could I dare to be careless? His brother who used his full strength lost to Ku's boyfriend? And he still looked so young. Xie Tianke suddenly felt desperate. It seemed that he could only watch Ku and her boyfriend go further and further away. "How did you lose?" Xie Qingzhen looked at his eldest son and asked. He was more concerned about this question. Xie Tianshu sighed. "I was hit by 5 tremor punches in a row. I didn't even have a chance to fight back." 5 tremor punches? Xie Tianke was shocked and interrupted in astonishment. He wasn't an ordinary martial artist with poor knowledge, and he often experienced the power of the meteor force. Naturally, he knew that an expert at the peak of the body refinement realm could only throw out 4 tremor punches at most, and there was no way they could truly suppress his own brother. 5 tremor punches in a row? What kind of inhuman was this? Yes, I feel that he still has some strength left. It won't be a problem to hit him 2 or 3 more times. Speaking of this, Xie Tianshu couldn't help but feel depressed. He almost lost the confidence to face Lu Qing again. Xie Qingjin, who had been listening quietly at the side, asked thoughtfully. Meteor Force? No, Meteor Force is faster than his Tremor Punch. It has both momentum and tremor force. But his Tremor Punch is more ingenious. I feel that there is still a lot of room for improvement. Xie Tianshu analyzed seriously. Xie Qingjin said, what do you think the result will be between him and Lin Ke? Xie Tianshu thought carefully and said, his physical fitness hasn't reached the peak of the body refining realm yet. If he uses the Tremor Punch and the Meteor Force to fight, he won't be able to withstand the shock of 3 superimposed moves. Not to mention that Lin Ke is close to the Dan stage. Xie Qingjin didn't say more. He turned to Xie Tianke and said with a smile, Tianke, if you want to beat him, you have to put in some hard work. However, even if I work hard, I won't be able to catch up to him. Xie Tianke opened his mouth, but he couldn't make up his mind. There was nothing more depressing and despairing than having one's love rival far surpass oneself. Xie Qingjin put his hands behind his back and said, Tianshu, accompany me to the 3 Pristines Hall to burn some incense. Xie Tianshu nodded and followed beside his father. They walked forward slowly until they were far away from Xie Tianke. He turned back to look at his brother, who was in a daze, and asked worriedly, Dad, are we pushing Tianke too hard? Ruthless? Xie Qingjin laughed. If even this kind of thing can't make him work harder, it can only mean that he's just a lustful guy. Then I don't have to worry that he won't be able to recover from the setback. If he really takes this opportunity to push himself to the limit and catch up with other girls, it's a good thing for him. Even if Yenjika is gone, there are still other good girls. Time is like a knife. Sooner or later, his feelings will fade away. Xie Tianshu glanced at his father and vaguely heard a sigh in his voice. Did his father also encounter a similar situation in the past? Did he also have a girl he couldn't get? He was not interested in love and romance, so he forgot about it in the blink of an eye. Because of the previous failure, he was more motivated to work harder. Being defeated is not terrible. What is terrible is losing the confidence to catch up. Fortunately, I still have this confidence. Sooner or later, I will face him again. When Yenjika looked to the side with a slight blush, her words just now echoed in Lu Cheng's ears. Does she mean that she will take me back to meet her parents directly after I graduate? Meet her parents? Lu Cheng was excited and scared at the same time. He was afraid that Yenjika's family would not like him. According to the girl's words, he was sure that she was born in a martial arts family. Her family must be very knowledgeable. A little professional 9th pin fighter would not be accepted by them. Even those who had just entered the Dan stage with no potential would not be accepted by them. Phew. Lu Cheng suddenly felt a sense of crisis and urgency. He wanted to temper his body to the peak as soon as possible. He wanted to step into the Dan stage and have at least the strength of professional 7th pin by the time he graduated. Only in this way could he successfully win the girl's heart. After his fortuitous encounter with the Jin Dan, his martial arts had improved by leaps and bounds. It wasn't that he hadn't dreamed of rising 1 pin in a year, becoming a mighty one with physical invulnerability, or obtaining the 5 major titles. However, they were just dreams. After all, they were still far from his current level. But at this moment he had a clear goal for the first time and a clearer desire. I want to improve my body to the peak of the body refining stage in half a year. I want to take advantage of opportunities such as preliminaries and university martial arts competitions to fight strong opponents and gain experience. I want to step into the Dan stage in 1 or 2 years. I want to be famous in the university martial arts circle and lay the best foundation for entering the professional martial arts competition in the future. I want to have at least the strength of professional 7th pin by the time I graduate. With a goal in mind, Lu Cheng suddenly felt the road ahead was much clearer and more motivated. 4 years in college was not a short time, but it was also not a long time. He had to make good use of it. Cheng, what are you thinking about? Yenjika stretched out her white and slender fingers and playfully waved them in front of his eyes. With a goal in mind, Lu Cheng couldn't help but say, I'm thinking if I go with you to see your parents-in-law. Who are your parents-in-law? Yenjika subconsciously shook off Lu Cheng's hand and blurted out shyly and angrily. Lu Cheng smiled and didn't explain. When the time comes, I want to grow up to be a reliable man whom they like and are willing to entrust their daughters to me. So I just set a goal. I want to be of professional 7th pin by the time I graduate. Yenjika, who was a little shy and angry, suddenly froze. Her eyes seemed to be shining. She stretched out her soft hand and held Lu Cheng's hand again. She looked down and said, "Don't push yourself too hard. Too much pressure will only hinder your progress. Take it slow and steady step by step. Then you'll be faster." The girl pursed her lips and blushed. She continued, "I'll also work hard. After graduation, I'll strive to be financially independent as soon as possible. Only in this way can I maintain my integrity and not be dominated by their opinions. I can only use them as a reference." Yenjika's words made Lu Qing feel that she was more mature than he was. And her willingness to work hard for their future surprised him even more. "Let's work hard together." Lu Qing held the girl's hand tightly. At this time they had arrived at the Three Pristines Hall. Yenjika smiled and said, "Then I'll go burn some incense." Looking at the girl's graceful figure shuttling through the hall and worshipping in front of the heavenly primogenitor, Lu Qing felt warm in his heart and smiled gently. "By the way, will that boy tell your family about us?" When Yenjika came back to him, Lu Qing suddenly felt worried. "I'm still very weak and haven't grown up yet." Yenjika looked up and said, "He's not a person who likes to gossip. He still has some integrity. I'll ask my brother to remind him. I won't do it myself in case he thinks I'm guilty. The more indifferent I appear, the less likely he will say. It seems that he's a good person." Lu Qing asked deliberately. How could he not know about this love rival who often met his girlfriend? "He's not that bad. He's just a little lazy. In this aspect, his brother is much better than him. He's a real martial arts fanatic and is especially devoted to martial arts. Everywhere he goes, he will definitely find someone to practice with. He's also very strong, maybe just a little bit weaker than my brother. When I was young, I especially admired them both." Yenjika answered casually. Lu Qing was a little jealous. "What about now?" "Now?" Yenjika suddenly felt something was wrong. Her eyebrows curved and she said with a smile, "Qing, I just found out today that you're very jealous." Cough. Lu Qing blushed again. He imitated Yenjika and looked to the side. "Maybe it's because I care too much? I won't like someone just because he's good at martial arts and has potential." Yenjika hummed. Lu Qing's heart skipped a beat. He asked in a low voice, "Then why do you like me?" Yenjika pulled a long face and said, "Because you're stupid." After saying that, she couldn't help but laugh out loud. Her voice was thin and clear. Lu Qing also laughed for a while. His little jealousy disappeared. Only now did he wake up and said thoughtfully, "That guy likes to practice with others? Then I should have just had a fight with him." "What?" Yenjika didn't understand at first. She blinked and asked, "Didn't I just learn Thunder Roar Zen? I was just a little excited so I had a fight with him." Lu Qing explained. He had already told his girlfriend that his arm was healed and he had learned Thunder Roar Zen. He also took the opportunity to tell her that Coach Shi was testing him. Once he passed, he would be an official disciple. "Your hand?" Yenjika looked at Lu Qing from head to toe. She was worried. Lu Qing hurriedly said, "Don't worry. I was careful. I used my left hand to beat him until he could only parry. Then I used my right hand." Hearing his words, Yenjika immediately understood that her boyfriend had won. She was very surprised and proud. "How many times did you hit him with Thunder Roar Zen?" "5." Lu Qing smiled and made a hand gesture. When Lu Qing went back to the dormitory and sat in front of the computer, he seemed to still smell the girl's sweet fragrance at the tip of his nose. He hummed a light song and opened the mailbox to check the information sent by Geezer Shi. The information of his opponent in next week's preliminaries. Lu Qing couldn't help but say to himself, "Kind of interesting." This time his opponent was called Mingwei Martial Arts School, also known as One-Man Team. Their leading fighter was called Peng Qingguang. He was 24 years old and stepped into professional 9th pin 3 years ago. It was the age when one was full of vigor and vitality and had the best physical quality. It could be said that he had no shortcomings in any aspect. According to the information, if he was ranked in the top 10 of Songqing Professional 9th Pin, he would definitely be one of them. In addition to him, Mingwei Martial Arts School only had one amateur first pin and several amateur second pin fighters. It was a real small martial arts school. They won 2 out of 3 matches and lost 1 match because of Peng Qingguang. When they were fighting against Azure Dragon Squad, Peng Qingguang defeated 2 professional 9th pin fighters in a row. If the rest of them had been a little bit stronger, they would have won the match. This was the origin of the name, One-Man Team. Lin K will just resume training next week. I'm the only one who can fight. Lu Qing thought. He remembered that when he was facing Mingwei Martial Arts School, he was the only professional ninth pin fighter in Songqing University Martial Arts Club. From another point of view, it was barely a one-man team. They were both one-man team. Who was stronger? As a martial artist, how could he not have the heart to compare? Lu Qing suddenly looked forward to this match. Chapter 163. While Lu Qing was watching Peng Qingwang's match video, Yan Zhika sent him a message. Qing, are you looking at the information? Yeah. Lu Qing replied with a snickering emoji. Me too. Yan Zhika replied with a snickering emoji. There was no need for superfluous words. In this short conversation, Lu Qing felt a kind of tacit understanding and a faint warmth that made him reminisce about it. His QQ chat window and the match video window were on one side of the screen, as if they had been adjusted long ago. At this moment, his fingers were moving quickly and he sent a sitting and listening emoji. Coach Yan, what do you think of Peng Qingwang? Yan Zhika used her favorite emoji of crossing her hands and supporting her chin and said, Peng Qingwang is at the peak of the body refining stage. His body hasn't deteriorated, and his qi and blood haven't declined. He has no shortcomings in strength, speed, skills, and experience. He is calm enough, mature enough, and brave enough to seize the opportunity and take risks. Moreover, his punches and kicks are beginning to show some signs of withdrawing. He may only have one problem, which is that the martial arts he inherited are too common. Yeah, although Jiuyang Punch and Jiuyang Godly Punch only differ by one word, their essence is completely different. Thinking of this, Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. Mingwei Martial Arts School was indeed too small and too common. This could be seen from the fact that there were many martial arts schools with this name. Lu Qing remembered that there was one in Xiushan. Peng Qingwang was an orphan adopted by the old master of Mingwei Martial Arts School. They called each other master and disciple. After the old master was seriously injured in a challenge tournament and died at an early age, Peng Qingwang carried the heavy burden of the martial arts school on his tender shoulders as a 16-year-old boy. Step by step he reached where he was today. Relying only on Jiuyang Punch and the beginner still stance he bought, he became a powerful body refining stage master in Songqing. In these years, many martial arts schools and martial arts families valued him. Some wanted to take him as a disciple and some wanted to invite him to join them. However, he rejected all of them. Many people thought that he was the next Liang Yifan. He was waiting for the right time to seize an opportunity and become a dragon. Lu Qing laughed at the imitation of Jiuyang Punch, but he wouldn't underestimate Peng Qingwang. While watching Peng Qingwang's match video, he discussed various details with Yan Zhika. When he was about to fall asleep, he finally confirmed one thing. Apart from Wei Xingtian, a Dan stage master, Peng Qingwang was probably the strongest opponent he had ever encountered. And this time, there was no Lin Ke to share the burden. The next morning, before dawn, Lu Qing had already arrived at his usual spot beside Weishui Lake. Geezer Shi appeared 5 minutes later than him. As usual, he was humming an unpleasant and off-key Chinese opera. Have you seen the information? He chuckled. Yes, I have. Lu Qing answered honestly. Do you have the confidence to defeat Peng Qingwang? Geezer Shi asked leisurely. Although Lu Qing was looking forward to this match and had the desire to fight, he was not blindly arrogant. He thought for a while and said, if Peng Qingwang can continuously resist Thunder Roar Zen, then I have the confidence to defeat him. Obviously, Peng Qingwang was not that stupid. With his experience and physical quality, he might not be obviously stiff after being hit by Thunder Roar Zen. Besides, he had encountered similar martial arts in the past, so he might be able to forcibly stop the vibration once or twice. Lu Qing's physical quality was still inferior to his brother-in-law's. In this kind of martial arts that relied on tight muscles to burst out instantly instead of the rebound of legs and feet to push the whole body forward, the gap was quite obvious. Hey, you didn't say anything. Geezer Shi said grumpily. Then he took out 2 neatly folded papers and handed them to Lu Qing. Lu Qing took them and unfolded them. He found that they were actually 2 visualization diagrams. This was a necessary thing to practice advanced martial arts. The entry-level visualization of the congealing water and lightning fire stance, as well as the brutal blizzard and mega avalanche, were relatively easy. Just by relying on his usual knowledge and Geezer Shi's explanations, he was able to quickly outline and form a prototype. However, it was absolutely impossible to master the more advanced visualization methods. One had to have a visualization diagram or understand the corresponding nature. Other than that, there was no other way. Of the 2 diagrams in Lu Qing's hands, one was a plain covered with ice and snow, drawn in a freehand style. But when he saw it, he felt that it was bone-chilling and boundless. The other one was a scene of a frozen river, drawn with fine brushstrokes. Even the lines of the waves condensing into ice were presented one by one, which made people feel the surging force and the more terrifying freezing intent contained in it. For a moment, Lu Qing felt that his hands were cold, as if he had directly touched 1,000-year-old ice. He almost shook his arms and threw the visualization diagram away. Cough. As Wuxia coughed, the illusion disappeared and the bone-chilling cold disappeared. First, look at the freezing sky and earth diagram and grasp the essence and charm. Remember which muscles, fascia, and internal organs it affects in the still stance visualization, and remember what changes they have. Then, under the condition that you don't do visualization, you repeatedly grasp them. When it comes to actual combat, visualize the frozen river diagram in your mind and use it to promote your supernatural ability of frost. Then, combine the subtle changes in your body that you have mastered and you can use the Ice Sex Frost Force. Wuxia explained, "Of course it's still miles away from my Ice Spirit Force." Speaking of this, he smiled and said, "Don't look down on it and think it's easy. It's not easy to master the essence and charm of the visualization diagram without a long time of comprehension. Even if you can enter meditation and see inside yourself, you still can't do it. Take it slow and don't rush. Try to master the Frost Force in half a year. By then, I can teach you 2 weakened versions of physical invulnerability moves. Without the Frost Force and without Lin Luoran's Meteor Force, even if you enter the dance stage, you still won't be a match for Peng Liyun. His shocking Thunder Force is not to be trifled with." Lu Qing knew that Frost Force, Shocking Thunder Force, and Meteor Force were not as powerful as Burning Force, so it was normal for them to be hard to practice. But he didn't believe what his master said about it being hard to learn just by visualization. He had vaguely understood the Ice Mirror martial arts, which required 2 or 3 years to master, by relying on his ability to enter meditation, let alone this one. However, after a while he had to admit that what his master said was right. His previous visualization didn't involve the essence and charm, so he couldn't understand the difficulty of outlining them. Now that he tried, it was really hard to grasp. It wasn't something that could be learned in a day. After taking another look at the visualization diagram, Lu Qing more or less understood what the so-called essence and charm were. It was just like the brutal blizzard he was visualizing. For the time being, he only had the appearance and momentum of the brutal blizzard. As for how violent the wind was, how violent the snow was, and how violent it was, there was almost no indication of how violent it was. Suppressing his impatience, he calmed down and continued today's practice. He only squeezed out 20 or 30 minutes to understand the visualization diagram. After the practice, Wuxia took away the visualization diagram and didn't let him take it back, which showed how precious it was. Time flew and the weekend was coming. Outside the Songqing University Martial Arts Club, there was an endless stream of people. Last week's competition had left a very good impression on the spectators. They spread the news by word of mouth and spontaneously promoted it, so the number of people coming to cheer for them had more than doubled. And this was without any official promotion. Songqing University's martial arts atmosphere isn't as bad as the rumors say. A stocky man with arms crossed in front of his chest and quietly watched the entrance of the stadium. He sighed with emotion to his companions beside him. On a cold spring day, he only wore a black t-shirt, his legs stretched tight against his jeans. He had 3 companions, one of whom had a mohawk hairstyle that left a deep impression. He chuckled and replied, "What's the big deal? No matter how good the martial arts atmosphere is, it can't be compared to Yimo's." "You're talking as if you've been to Yimo?" Another bald man with a beard mocked. "I'm just giving an example. Anyway, our purpose today is to observe Lu Cheng's battle and get a feel for the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. After the amateur ranking event, it'll be our turn. Whether we can qualify this year will depend on that battle." The man with the mohawk hairstyle laughed and looked more relaxed. A cyan dragon head vaguely appeared on their necks. Chapter 164. The sky was dark and gloomy. A spring rain was brewing, forcing the Songqing University Martial Arts Arena to turn on the lights in advance and illuminate the entire arena. Compared to last week when they spontaneously came, the students who rushed into the stadium this time did not buy trumpets, cheering sticks and other items. However, many of them had already recalled the experience last year, which set off waves after waves of cheers around them. Each wave was louder than the last. Hearing Songqing University, Mo Zitsong, the captain of Azure Dragon Squad, couldn't help but sigh. When can we have such a home ground, such an atmosphere? He and his 3 companions didn't find a seat, but stood at the back of the highest part of the stands, like 4 pillars and 4 security guards. Deng Hua with the Mohican hairstyle put away his relaxed expression and smiled bitterly. Others brought it themselves. We can't learn it unless we can fight in the preliminaries one day. They were a local team in Songqing, unlike Yimo or Songqing University Martial Arts Club, which had tens of thousands of students as its natural support. They had to compete with many strong teams for supporters. Songqing, as the provincial capital, had 2 clubs that had entered the 3rd level of the district competition, which had harvested most of the corresponding market, leaving very little for the strong teams in the preliminaries. The Azure Dragon Squad was a combination of 3 martial arts schools. They had rented the 2nd hall of the Songqing Martial Arts Stadium as their home ground. The stands that could hold a few thousand spectators usually only had 600 to 700 spectators. This was because many people were used to coming to watch a few fights on the weekends. Therefore, they placed a lot of importance on whether or not they could advance to the next round in a group. That meant that they would be able to get a share of the broadcast, a bigger audience, and a martial arts unique skill reward that was only 1 step away. After losing to Yimo Fearless Squad, they no longer had a way out. They had to defeat Songqing University Martial Arts Club. Therefore, they took advantage of the fact that their match was on Sunday to come to Songqing University to watch Lu Cheng's fight up close. After all, this was a genius who had reached the professional level in half a year. 2 weeks of recuperation might bring him a lot of changes. This match wasn't a focus match, only a recording. As for when it would be broadcasted after the recording, it would depend on the TV station's arrangement. In the locker room of the home team, Gizershur took a sip of wine and leisurely said to Lu Cheng, Sun Jian, Li Mao, Yanjika and the others, "Finally, Peng Qingguang is really good. If he can get some good martial arts, it won't be a big problem for him to reach Dan stage in a year. He can be considered as one of the top 10 professional 9th pin fighters in Songqing. However, I always feel that the ranking of the top 10 professional 9th pin is nonsense. It's like when you were in school there were top 10 in your grade and top 10 in class. It's normal." Haha. Lu Cheng and the others were amused and the atmosphere lightened up. Although they had all been caught by Coach Shur in one fell swoop and placed in the bad students category, who could refute his words given his status as a mighty one with physical invulnerability? Gizershur was very satisfied with the effect of his words. He said proudly, "Sun Jian, Li Mao, you 2 fight one after the other. Apart from Peng Qingguang, Gao Rao, Zhang Ying, Chu Yu and Lu Wei of Mingwei Martial Arts School are not much worse than you. Go all out and don't worry." Lu Cheng laughed and raised his hand. "Coach Shur, you're giving me a lot of pressure." Yanjika, who was beside him, had been covering her mouth and laughing. Li Mao also relaxed. "Pressure." Gizershur wouldn't say that he was giving pressure on purpose. He laughed and said, "I remember that this is your first fight on home ground, right?" Lu Cheng was stunned and nodded seriously. "Yes. Indeed, I almost forgot. This is my first fight on behalf of Songqing University Martial Arts Club in our school." Gizershur nodded slightly and pointed outside. "Listen carefully." The locker room fell silent immediately. Lu Cheng listened carefully and heard the familiar shouts. He heard the waves of voices that had brought him great shock. He heard the roars that had left a deep impression on him. Songqing University. Songqing University. Songqing University. Songqing University. This time they were crying for him. "Did you hear that?" Gizershur asked with a smile. "Yes." Lu Cheng nodded hard. Gizershur chuckled and asked again, "Do you feel pressured?" "Yes." Lu Cheng didn't hide his slight trembling. His left hand felt Yanjika's delicate palm. Gizershur's expression suddenly became serious. He said in a low voice, "Do you want to win?" The shouts echoed in Lu Cheng's ears. Suddenly his blood surged in his chest. He shouted loudly, "Brother Lu." "Yes." In the locker room of the away team, Peng Qingguang sat on a bench and looked at his junior brothers and sisters. He smiled slightly and said, "Why do you look like you've made a mistake?" He was wearing a dark gray martial arts suit and had a crew cut. His facial features were quite ordinary, but he had a calm temperament. He looked unusually capable. Zhang Ying, who had a baby face, bit her lower lip and said, "Senior brother, we always feel like we're a burden to you. After our master passed away, you were the one who supported the martial arts club and prevented us from returning to the orphanage. But we not only failed to repay you but also caused you to fail again and again. For several years we couldn't advance in the group stage and get the martial arts unique skill reward. Senior brother, if you were willing to join other teams, you would have gotten a good martial arts skill and advanced to the Dan stage long ago. We're so useless. We're only a burden. Gao Rao, who had long arms and legs, said a little self-deprecatingly. Peng Qingguang stretched out his hand and said, "You don't have to say any more. I promised our master that I would make the martial arts club flourish and give you all a good future. This is my own choice. It has nothing to do with you. Besides, if I want to make the martial arts club flourish, I definitely can't rely on myself. I need your help. After all, one hero needs 4 helpers, right? Don't worry too much about this preliminaries. Our purpose is to use this opportunity to train ourselves. Of course it's good to win, but it doesn't matter if we lose. With this kind of experience, maybe next year or the year after, some of you will become professional fighters. At that time, if we work together, we won't be afraid that we can't advance. I'm still young. I can wait." Hearing that, Gao Rao put away his guilt and said worriedly, "Senior brother Lu Qing from Songqing University Martial Arts Club should be able to fight today. You have to be careful." Hearing this, Chuyu, who was next to him, said, "Senior brother Gao Lu Qing is strong, but there's still a big gap between him and senior brother. It's said that his physical fitness has just reached the level of professional 9th pin. But he has mastered the mercurial balance and his physical strength is abnormal." Lu Wei was also a little worried. Peng Qingguang stopped the quarrel between his junior brothers and sisters and nodded with a smile. "Lu Qing is indeed very strong. He's an enemy that we have to look up to. In front of such a strong opponent, I should be modest and say that I'll be happy if I win, but it's also worth it if I lose. But I can't say it." Speaking of this, he touched his left chest and said, "The more I face such a strong opponent, the more it beats telling me." He stood up suddenly and said with a strong aura, "I want to win." After the arrangement, Geezer sure let Lu Qing and the others move freely and wait for the fight. Lu Qing wanted to close his eyes and rest for a while before warming up. But he saw Yin Zhika take out her phone and press the buttons quickly. Buzz. His phone in his pocket rang. He took it out and saw a message from the girl. She said with a pitiful voice, "I'm so angry." "What's wrong?" Lu Qing said with an emoji touching the head. "I'm just kidding." Yin Zhika replied with a blushing emoji. "I'm just a little disappointed. I thought I would have a chance to fight today. I always feel that with the ability to pull the center of gravity and listening skill, I'm not much worse than senior brother Sun Jian and senior brother Li Mao. Squatting and drawing circles in the corner, am I too proud? Complacent? If it was Kai Xiaoming who said this, Lu Qing would definitely reply, "You're so full of yourself after winning one fight." But facing his girlfriend, he would definitely say something different. "You're between the level of amateur 2nd and 3rd pin. You're close to them, but you're still lacking in actual combat experience." Yes. I'll improve my actual combat experience in next week's amateur ranking event." Yin Zhika replied with an emoji with bright eyes. It was the first amateur ranking event of the year again. Lu Qing unconsciously smiled again. "Which pin are you going to register for?" "Amateur 2nd pin. One must have a goal." Yin Zhika sent an emoji with a red scarf wrapped around her head. "Hey, I think I said something like that before, but at that time my goal was amateur 5th pin." "Yeah." Lu Qing also recalled the past. "I thought it was too bold to register for amateur 7th pin at that time. But now..." Yin Zhika sent an emoji with tears streaming down her face. Without waiting for Lu Qing's reply, she sent another message. "Close your eyes and rest. Don't look at your phone. If you don't perform well, don't think about doing that this week." "It was you who sent the message first." Lu Qing criticized in his mind and replied with a frightened emoji. "Yes, Coach Yin." Seeing her boyfriend put down his phone and obediently closed his eyes to rest, Yin Zhika felt sweet in her heart. She was about to do the same, but suddenly found the door of the locker room opened and Lin Kei walked in. "Cousin is so late today." She was surprised to see Lin Kei expressionlessly gesturing to her to look at her phone. "Look at my phone?" When Yin Zhika's eyes moved downwards, she felt the vibration of her phone and saw the message from Lin Quebec. "Last week at Tiantong Taoist Temple, not only Xia Tiankei saw you and Lu Qing, but also Uncle Xia. He mentioned it when he visited Grandpa this week. Your mother just called me and asked me if this was true." "This?" Yin Zhika's body suddenly trembled and she felt as if her heart had stopped beating. Chapter 165. Just when Yin Zhika suspected that all the sounds around her had disappeared, Her phone vibrated again and a new message popped up. I told her that you were annoyed by Xie Tiang's pestering, so you grabbed a male classmate who came to visit me as a shield. You rehearse your lines yourself. Phew. Yanjika heaved a sigh of relief and relaxed. She could hear the rapid beating of her heart and feel the blood gushing to her face. Brother, can't you finish it in one breath? You scared me to death. She vented her emotions with words. Lin Kei quickly replied, I felt the same when I received your mother's call. So you want me to experience it too? Yanjika didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She only felt that her cousin's dry humor was not something normal people could bear. She used 6 ellipses to express her feelings. Lin Kei said to himself, if your mother takes this matter seriously, she may fly directly to see you. You have to pay attention to the same words as the people around you. Also, don't get close to Lu Cheng in places that are easily discovered. It's really possible? Yanjika thought of her mother's character and style and almost gasped. Brother, you seem to be very experienced. You can even think of this. Lin Kei only replied to her with 3 words, I'm smart. Yanjika's mouth twitched and quickly typed, but I'm not stupid either. Every time I score in the IQ test, I score higher than you. Love makes people stupid. Lin Kei said concisely and then put the phone in his pocket. Yanjika calmed down and thought of countermeasures in her mind. She was a little scared, a little relieved and a little depressed. After a while, Lu Qing recovered and opened his eyes. He got up and practiced the routine. He moved his muscles and fascia little by little so that they were gradually in the best condition. Looking at her boyfriend's relaxed movements, Yanjika suddenly felt a little melancholy. Should I tell this to Qing? The most important thing for 2 people to be together is to be honest and communicate. It doesn't seem good to hide it from him, but if I tell him, he will definitely blame himself and think that I didn't do well enough. I suggested to go to Tiantong Taoist Temple for a date. And this will aggravate the feeling of an underground relationship. He will probably feel uncomfortable in his heart. While Lu Cheng was hesitating and struggling, he finished his warm-up. He turned around and asked in a low voice, Ku, what are you thinking about? Yanjika suppressed all her emotions and said with a faint smile, thinking of your bad things. What bad things have I done? I'm such an honest kid. Lu Cheng smiled and sat beside the girl. Does becoming more and more thick-skinned count? Yanjika chuckled. After talking to Cheng, my mood seemed to improve. Moreover, I had never lied to my parents before, but the first thing I thought about was lying. Am I falling deeper and deeper? Lu Cheng and Yanjika chatted for a while before they realized that Lin Kei had arrived. When they nodded to greet him, he suddenly felt that his brother-in-law seemed a little different from before. In the past, Lin Kei was silent, reserved, and cold. But now he had a sense of quiet. Quiet, calm, and tranquil. Had he touched the edge of the dance stage? Lu Cheng guessed thoughtfully. He was happy for his brother-in-law and wanted to work harder. He couldn't let him widen the gap between them. As a martial artist, how could he not have the heart to compete for supremacy? While he was thinking, Gizershur stood up and clapped his hands. Okay, let's go. Let's go and wait for our opponent. Lu Cheng, Yanjika, Sun Jian, and the others looked at each other and put their hands together. Then they shouted in unison, Victory! When they stepped out of the locker room, a deafening shout suddenly erupted in their ears. Songqing University. The superimposition of 2,000 to 3,000 voices in the stadium created a storm that reverberated in the stadium. Lu Cheng's body trembled with excitement. Then he heard a new shout. Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng. They all know my name? Lu Cheng and Yanjika looked at each other and couldn't help but feel excited. Then a new wave of shouts came, Come on, Lu Cheng. The students who crowded into the martial arts stadium to watch the fight, as long as they were not the kind who were invited by others, would more or less check the relevant information in advance. From the results of several rounds of preliminaries, they unexpectedly found that the martial arts club had 1 more main force, 1 more pillar, and 1 more brilliant unranked master. At this time they couldn't help but shout. This year the martial arts club had a chance. Whether it was the preliminaries or the university martial arts competition in the second half of the year. Lu Cheng's scalp tingled when he heard the shouts. He felt so good that he couldn't wait to rush to the arena and fight 300 rounds with Peng Qingguang. A gentleman would die for his bosom friend. He waved his hand reservedly, and got more shouts and warm welcome in return. Feeling a little tipsy, he, Yanjika, and the others sat in the seats of the home team and heard Gizershur say, The order of the Mingwei Martial Arts Club is still the same. Gao Rao is the first, Zhang Ying is the second, and Peng Qingguang is the third. Gao Rao was an amateur first pin fighter, and Zhang Ying was an amateur second pin fighter. Their boxing skills were not bad, but because Juyang boxing was very ordinary, they didn't have any trump cards or short burst abilities. Overall, they could be called mediocre. Seeing the referee waving to them, Sun Jian stood up and smiled to Lu Cheng and the others. Today we don't have to worry about not being able to fight all the time. After he finished speaking, he raised his fist and gave himself a pep talk before walking towards the ring. At this time, because of the list on the big screen, new words echoed in the martial arts stadium. Sun Jian. Come on. Sun Jian's blood was boiling and he seemed to be secreting adrenaline. Instinctively, he wanted to recall the feeling of challenging the great Demon King in the previous competition and find his best condition. However, some things would only erupt under certain circumstances. Now that he wanted to try again, time had passed and it would be difficult to recreate it again. However, he was more barbaric and unreasonable than before. His pace was getting faster and faster and he had already climbed the stone steps. On the other side, Gao Rao left his seat and walked to the arena along the path of brilliance. When he was about to reach the stone steps, he couldn't help but look back at his senior brother who was sitting calmly. This time I won't be a burden anymore. He secretly clenched his fist and gritted his teeth. In the first 3 rounds he lost all 3. Even when he fought against the Dream Squad, he lost to Feng Xiaoquan. He was full of self-blame and didn't want to be a burden to his senior brother again. He wanted to have an outbreak. On the arena, Sun Jian and Gao Rao stood opposite each other. The referee said with a serious face, 4th round of preliminaries, Songqing University Martial Arts Club vs Mingwei Martial Arts Club. First round, Sun Jian vs Gao Rao. 3 minutes of conversation time starts. Gao Rao closed his eyes and adjusted his mood and body. He planned to turn a deaf ear to the enemy's words. Sun Jian belonged to the gentle type, and his family education was very strict. He was probably the last few in the martial arts club when it came to swearing. At this time, when he saw that his opponent didn't want to talk to him, he was happy to save his mind and energy. He seized the last moment to repeatedly think about how to attack. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Time passed quickly. The referee raised his right hand and waved it down. Start. As soon as he heard the referee, Sun Jian, who was already prepared, bulged his thigh muscles and jumped down. He used the force to pounce forward like a nimble leopard pouncing on its prey. As soon as he got close, he shook his shoulder and sent out his right arm. He opened his 5 fingers and grabbed Gao Rao like a bird of prey. Flower-splitting willow hand. Gao Rao was cautious and didn't give his opponent a chance to grab him. He leaned back on his left side, clenched his right hand into a fist, and punched out horizontally to block the attack. But just as he was about to touch the flower-splitting willow hand, Sun Jian's left fist seemed to have been ready for a long time. His muscles bulged and shot out like a bolt of lightning, leaping toward his abdomen like a viper. The right hand grabbing was a feint while the left fist was a real punch. This was the attack that Sun Jian had been planning for several days. Gao Rao's posture was awkward. He could only swing his left arm back and punch down to block in a hurry. Bang! He didn't use enough strength to block and was bounced back by Sun Jian's fist. If he hadn't shrunk his abdomen in time, he would have been in a more embarrassing situation. Sun Jian took advantage of this rebounding force, twitched his thigh and kicked out his right foot, launching the brutal blizzard of the 24 blizzard strikes. Seeing this scene, Peng Qingguang sighed and said, "Little Rao's burden is too heavy. He wants to win too much and is afraid of losing." Facing the enemy's attack, he was too conservative and ended up in a passive position. Zhang Ying, Chu Yu and Lu Wei were stunned. They understood that eldest senior brother was not only talking about Gao Rao, but also reminding them. Chapter 166. Gao Rao blocked one blow after another in the arena. He felt that the more he blocked, the harder it was for him, while the more he fought, the fiercer his opponent became. It wasn't that he hadn't watched the competition videos of the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. It wasn't that he didn't know how terrifying his opponent's 24 blizzard strikes was. It wasn't that he didn't prepare for it and didn't consider how to prevent his opponent from using his strength. It was just that he was in a hurry to defend himself. He didn't have the ability to use short bursts of strength. But now, Sun Jian had already started to gain momentum. Each punch was heavier than the previous one, and each kick was fiercer than the previous one. Gao Rao was on the verge of collapsing, and his strength was at a disadvantage. He could only focus on defense and there was no chance for him to use short bursts of strength. If the Nine-Yang Fist was a better martial art and had a burst of power similar to the modern cannon fist or an unreasonable move like the bear form, Gao Rao would have been able to use it to meet force with force and forcefully interrupt his opponent's violent blizzard suppression. Unfortunately, the biggest characteristic of the Nine-Yang Fist was that it did not have any special characteristics. It had all kinds of hammering techniques, single whips, cannon fists and leg techniques, but lacked the finishing touch. Can I only endure until his stamina can't keep up? But I'm afraid I can't hold on much longer. Facing Sun Jian's undersea blast and half-step crushing punch, Gao Rao was a little anxious. He couldn't wait to get out of the current situation. If he lost again, how could he face his eldest senior brother? To see his eldest senior brother who refused to join other forces in order to protect the name of the martial arts club, to see his eldest senior brother who didn't want to become a disciple of a dance stage master, to see his eldest senior brother who protected him and others and never complained. I want to help him even in my dreams. I can't be a burden anymore. Gao Rao felt a strong desire to fight burning in his heart and the urge to break out of the current situation. He couldn't hold it in anymore. He exerted strength in his back, bulged his thighs and suddenly leaned his feet. As the force rebounded, he straightened his knees, tightened his thighs, sprung his spine, and rotated his waist and back, stirring all the muscles in his body, turning his right arm into a whistling steel whip. With a snap, he lashed out fiercely and firmly. This was perhaps the most powerful attack he could unleash. Sun Jian didn't show mercy. He sprung his back and his body swung forward. Mixed with the borrowed strength, he blasted out a mountain blast punch. Bang! With a dull explosion, Gao Rao, whose strength was already at a disadvantage, swayed his body and barely managed to maintain his center of gravity. At this time, he saw Sun Jian take half a step back as if he was about to stumble and fall. Could it be that he only had an empty frame and his lower body was unstable? Gao Rao was overjoyed. Just as he was about to stabilize his center of gravity and switch from defense to offense, Sun Jian's stomp made him seem like a spring or a stray bullet. After a quick collision with the ground, he suddenly rebounded forward. His speed was so fast that Gao Rao only had time to hurriedly raise his arms. Catapult technique. Sun Jian had just closed in on Gao Rao's body when he opened his right hand. His 5 fingers were like sharp teeth and fierce claws as he ruthlessly grabbed the enemy's arm. Just as Gao Rao was about to shake off his arm, Sun Jian stepped on the ground again and leaped forward. He flashed past Gao Rao's stance and appeared behind him. Then he turned around and grabbed both of Gao Rao's arms. With a twist, a lift and a scissor, Sun Jian completed the capture. At the same time, he raised his right foot and kicked the bend of Gao Rao's knee. Gao Rao's attempt to turn the tables was abruptly stopped. He could no longer stand steadily and fell on one knee. Until now, Gao Rao suddenly came to his senses and realized that he had fallen into Sun Jian's trap. The referee beside him raised his right hand and loudly announced the result. First round, Sun Jian wins. Gao Rao's mind buzzed. His heart was full of annoyance and confusion. Lost? I lost again? Did I drag senior brother down again? When Sun Jian let go of his hand, he stood up shakily and walked out of the arena in a daze. Sure enough, this was not a cartoon. You couldn't win just because you had the reason and belief to win. You couldn't defeat a strong enemy just by recalling the past and shouting in your heart. Sun Jian was not interested in the enemy's thoughts or emotions. After the expected trap succeeded, he was overflowing with joy and satisfaction. The taste of victory was indeed wonderful, so was the hot blood of every punch. He turned around and waved his fist at the seats of Songqing University Martial Arts Club and the audience in the stands. Lu Qing and the others smiled and applauded. The audience responded with warm cheers. Sun Jian. In the warm atmosphere, Gao Rao walked back to the guest team's seat. He almost didn't dare to raise his head and face senior brother, junior brothers, and junior sisters. The front part was too tight and the back part was too rushed. Peng Qingguang was neither disappointed nor angry. He simply commented, "Go back and think about it carefully. After you digest and absorb the combat experience of this preliminaries, you have a great chance to go further." Hearing eldest senior brother's consolation and encouragement, and feeling how indifferent he was about his failure, Gao Rao felt even more upset. He wished that eldest senior brother could scold him and give him a few slaps. Only then would he feel better, and the guilt and self-blame in his heart would dissipate a little. "Senior brother, I'm not a kid anymore." He really wanted to shout back like this. Peng Qingguang looked at Zhang Ying, who was standing beside him, and whispered, "Take the initiative. Don't let him mess up your rhythm. Don't let him get the chance to close in on you. Also stay calm and don't rush." He's a smart opponent and is good at setting traps. Zhang Ying nodded and remembered senior brother's words. She turned around and walked to the arena, her eyes fixed on Sun Jian. Well, in conclusion, this is a refined scum. Her hair was tied up and her ponytail was swinging. With her baby face, people would believe that she was still in high school. After standing in front of Sun Jian, she took a deep breath and told herself to calm down. Second round, start. The referee didn't give them time to adjust. Gao Rao was a fighter of amateur first pin. It seemed easy for Sun Jian to defeat him, but in fact it wasn't easy. If he hadn't made his opponent fall into a passive position at the beginning and used 24 blizzard strikes, the winner would have been uncertain. After going through such a fierce battle, and the fact that 24 blizzard strikes was a particularly exhausting fighting style, one could imagine Sun Jian's condition. He only had one thought at this time, and that was to force his opponent to meet force with force and create an opportunity for Li Mao behind him. Bang! After the start sound, he stepped forward. His right arm shook and turned into a long spear. With the momentum of exploding the air, he stabbed at Zhang Ying. Zhang Ying had been prepared. Her right foot slipped and dodged to the side, trying to fight steadily. As soon as she came to the side of her opponent, she tightened her thigh muscles and drove her knee to pull out a whip kick that tore the wind. Sun Jian took a deep breath, twisted his waist and back, tightened his trousers, and fiercely kicked out his left leg from the side. Bang! After the two collided, Zhang Ying took advantage of the rebound force and tiptoed to change her position again. She started to attack again and controlled the rhythm of the game. Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. The two kept fighting and separating. Zhang Ying didn't give Sun Jian a chance to use 24 blizzard strikes in close combat. She grasped the trick of moving away as soon as she touched him. After a series of collisions, she found another opportunity. She blocked and pulled with her left hand and punched with her right fist. Bang! Sun Jian's right hand turned into a hammer and went straight down to block this punch. His body was shaking. Was he at his limit? Was his strength reduced to this extent? Zhang Ying was shocked and was about to take advantage of the situation to attack fiercely. However, the words of eldest senior brother suddenly echoed in her mind. Calm down, don't rush. Zhang Ying calmed down, twisted her waist and back slightly, and stepped to the side of Sun Jian again. Then she saw that he took advantage of the rebound force and rushed forward fiercely, bursting out the power that was comparable to his heyday. Phew, he is really treacherous. I was almost fooled. Zhang Ying was angry. She caught up with him in a few steps, raised her right hand, lowered her waist, and was about to take the opportunity to cut down with her fist. At this time, Sun Jian exerted strength on his feet and jumped out of the ring. Jumped out of the ring, jumped out of the ring. Zhang Ying stared blankly at Sun Jian below the stage. She wondered if he had become muddle-headed. After Sun Jian stood firmly, he quickly tidied his hair and praised himself for being smart. When the last burst of power didn't hit the enemy, he was at his limit. As long as the opponent hit him one or two more times, he would definitely be defeated. Since he was going to be defeated anyway, why would he stupidly let the opponent hit him, or fall to the ground and make himself look so embarrassed? In front of so many people, he had to keep his composure. Sun Jian brushed his hair and walked back to his seat with light footsteps. Seeing this, Li Mao stood up suddenly and left his seat. Because his face was not as bad as before, and his body was not as tense as before, Lu Qing and the others didn't say anything to avoid the opposite effect. Slowly, she will definitely lose. When he was about to meet Li Mao, Sun Jian clenched his fist and said with a smile. This time, Li Mao felt a little nervous, but he didn't lose the ability to think. He nodded and reached out his right fist to bump with Sun Jian's. As he walked up the stone steps, he gently exhaled and adjusted his slightly tense body. Just like what Cheng and the others said, when he removed the burden, his nervousness would gradually decrease with the number of fights. It was not a terminal illness that couldn't be overcome. My body is still a little stiff. If I respond passively later, it will be easy to cause problems. So, it's better to take the initiative and take the initiative. After I get through the difficulties at the beginning, I can really enter the competition state. Li Mao silently said, take the initiative, and came to the opposite of Zhang Ying. Compared to before, he was quite satisfied with his current state. At least his mind was not close to blank. Zhang Ying seized the time to adjust her breath and recover her strength. She had just calmed down and played a guerrilla fight, which prolonged the competition time and consumed a lot of energy. However, after winning the first round, the burden in her heart was reduced a lot, and she could calmly analyze the situation of her opponent. This martial artist called Li Mao was very nervous. Although his symptoms were definitely not as serious after his victory over Feng Xiaoquan last week, I still had a chance to take advantage of it. I will take the initiative to attack and take advantage of his confusion at the beginning. The third round start. The referee waved his arm. As soon as he finished his words, Li Mao gathered his strength and instinctively stepped forward. Zhang Ying's knee bounced and fiercely jumped forward. The two figures were very close in an instant, which made the audience exclaim. At this distance, with this kind of inertia, it was already too late for anyone to dodge or retreat. Their pupils contracted at the same time. In an instant, relying on the instinct of a fighter, they clenched their teeth, twisted their backs, and punched at the same time. When two rivals meet on a narrow road, the brave wins. Chapter 167. Both Li Mao and Zhang Ying summoned their courage without any hesitation. They both stomped on the ground, twisted their waist and swung their arms, and threw out the same blast punch. Bang! When the two fists collided, it was as if they were frozen in mid-air. Immediately after, Li Mao's body swayed backward, while Zhang Ying took half a step back. Only then did she manage to stabilize her body. Both of them were of amateur second pin. As a woman, she was at a disadvantage in terms of strength after a fierce fight. Li Mao's mind was still a little tight, so he didn't have time to think. Following his fighting instinct, he swayed his waist, bulged his legs and kicked out his left leg like a soft whip. Bam! His left leg straightened quickly, exploding the air. Zhang Ying didn't have time to dodge. She gritted her teeth, tightened her feet and kicked back. Bang! The two legs hit each other, swayed and took a step back. Li Mao's mind was full of the idea of attacking first. Without any adjustment, he pounced forward again, bulged his muscles, swung his right arm and hammered like a war drum. Again? Zhang Ying's eyes narrowed, and she regretted her previous decision. But now she had no better choice but to fight hard. She stomped on the ground with her right foot, pulled back her arm, clenched her fist, and shook the wind like a cannonball. Bang! Another muffled sound. Zhang Ying couldn't withstand her opponent's strength. Her right arm was swung away and her upper body fell back, losing her center of gravity. Li Mao, on the other hand, only swayed and was about to attack again. In a flash, Zhang Ying suddenly thought of the competition video she studied a few days ago, and a picture flashed in her mind. She could try this. Anyway, it couldn't be worse. She clenched her teeth and gave up trying to stabilize her center of gravity and force in a hurry. She leaned forward and bent her waist, but her right leg suddenly bounced up, turned into a straight whip and unexpectedly whipped Li Mao. Iron Bridge Dragon turning over. This was a move Zhang Ying learned from watching Lu Cheng's fighting video. Before reaching the high-ranked Dan stage, there wouldn't be any complicated feints or changes in the moves. This was because the speed and control ability of low-ranked martial artists couldn't accomplish these at all. It would only make the moves look fancy and impractical, and it would only be for show. Therefore, the core of the martial arts in these few stages was visualization, force exertion techniques, and routines to train different muscles. It was something that couldn't be learned from watching videos or watching fights. Of course, some moves and techniques couldn't be hidden from others. After watching a few replays, one would be able to figure it out. For example, the trick to take a step back when colliding with the opponent and Lu Cheng's Iron Bridge Dragon flip. In terms of movement, this move was simple and clear. The difficult part was whether one had the ability to control their own center of gravity. Being able to understand it did not mean that one could learn it. Of course, Zhang Ying wasn't as good as Lu Cheng in this aspect, but she didn't expect to be able to stabilize her center of gravity and borrow the force to rise again. She was purely relying on the advantage of a girl's flexibility to seek chaos in defeat and obstruct the enemy. Li Mao did not expect that the enemy would respond in this way. His left hand lashed out like a whip, taking advantage of the situation to launch an attack. However, he saw the black martial arts shoes coming straight at his chin. The air was torn apart and the wind was whistling. Li Mao couldn't take back his stance and his right fist couldn't catch up to block. Li Mao's heart tightened. He didn't have time to think. He shrunk his head, curled his body and lay down to the side. Lazy donkey roll. Zhang Ying's kick missed and she lost her balance. She fell to the ground and rolled twice. At the same time, both of them jumped up like a carp and stood up again. Only then did the students recover from their initial exclamations. They applauded and cheered for the courage and determination displayed by the two in the previous collision. After this, Li Mao was frightened and scared. His nervousness completely disappeared and he entered the competition state. He calmed down and faced Zhang Ying's attack calmly. Zhang Ying also didn't have the intention to attack first. She used her footwork and walked around the opponent to take the initiative to attack and let the competition return to the rhythm she was familiar with. Just as she came to the side, she clenched her fist and chopped with great momentum. Li Mao didn't want to win, but he didn't want to make any mistakes. He raised his right arm to block first and then swung it out to avoid the next move, going to the back. Zhang Ying twitched her thigh and kicked the enemy's knee with the tip of her foot. Li Mao twisted his waist and turned around, sweeping his leg. Similar scenes kept happening. The sound of the collision and the crisp sound of the air exploding echoed from time to time. One of them attacked beautifully, the other defended stably. It was difficult to determine the winner in a short time. During this process, Li Mao didn't only know how to defend. He himself was not a heavy and inflexible style. Once he seized the opportunity, he would take a few steps forward and counterattack to relieve the pressure of the passive defense. As time passed, he suddenly heard Zhang Ying's breathing become heavier and her flexible footwork seemed to be a little slower. Did her physical strength drop to the level of qualitative change? Li Mao's heart moved, but he didn't immediately counterattack because he was too anxious in the last round. As soon as he noticed that Feng Xiaoquan was close to his limit, he attacked fiercely. As a result, he was almost defeated by the opponent's tiger and crane attack. The lesson was not far away. Li Mao calmed down and slowly changed the situation of attack and defense. After forcing Zhang Ying back with one move, he took a step forward, swung his right arm and waved it down like holding a steel whip. Crack. Zhang Ying's footwork was not messed up. Her right arm crossed in front of her chest and hammered in the opposite direction to block the whip. However, when the two of them collided, Li Mao could clearly feel her weakness. Hence, he did not show her any mercy. He swung his arms, making them look like two steel whips. As his body leaned forward, he alternated between swinging them down crazily. The slapping sounds were endless. Zhang Ying gritted her teeth, held her breath, and blocked a few times. Finally, she couldn't resist and was pulled away from her stance. She was about to be hit in the body. At this time, the referee next to him stretched out his hand and put it on Li Mao's shoulder. With a shake and a press, he dispersed his strength. The third round, Li Mao wins. With the referee's announcement, the audience in the stands responded with warm applause. They cheered for Li Mao and also showed respect to a girl who could fight to this extent. At the same time, some students whispered to each other, discussing whether Li Mao's last few moves were the legendary tortoise fist. But Li Mao didn't care about this. Even if his posture was ugly, it was good enough to win the game. This is the second victory I've won on behalf of Songqing University Martial Arts Club. He gasped and thought in ecstasy. Suddenly, an idea came to his mind. Martial arts is so interesting. Zhang Ying heaved a sigh of relief and looked a little disappointed. She still wanted to defeat Li Mao so that her senior brother could face Lu Cheng in his most complete state. As for exhausting Lu Cheng, she had already given up the idea after witnessing Lu Cheng's abnormal stamina in 3 consecutive battles. Forget it. With senior brother's strength, defeating Li Mao is just a piece of cake. It won't affect his duel with Lu Cheng. With a change of mind, she walked down the ring in a good mood and went to meet her eldest senior brother. You fought very well. Peng Qingguang was not stingy with his praise. Hearing this, Zhang Ying was first overjoyed, then inexplicably touched. Her eyes reddened and she almost shed tears. The words she had prepared turned into 3 words in a low voice. Eldest senior brother? Senior brother, I'm so happy to be able to help you. Peng Qingguang smiled and said confidently without showing off, Go back. Leave the rest to me. After giving each other a high five, he walked along the road, stepped on the stone steps and stepped into the arena. Looking at the famous 9th pin master, Li Mao suddenly felt a little nervous, not because of nervousness, but because it was the first time he faced a professional fighter. Don't panic. I just want to exhaust him a few moves. What's there to be afraid of? Li Mao calmed down and stared at Peng Qingguang in his posture. This 9th pin master is much more mature than his actual age. The audience cheered for Li Mao again. At the same time, they didn't expect Li Mao to be invincible after a fierce battle. They only thought that with the gap of 2 pins, he should be able to exhaust some of Lu Cheng's strength and create an advantage for Lu Cheng. Li Mao! Li Mao! As the shouts echoed, the referee waved his right hand. The 4th round, start. Li Mao didn't dare to fight with a professional 9th pin master. He moved forward with the snake steps and slid to the side of Peng Qingguang. He clenched his fist and hit his opponent with chopping force. Peng Qingguang stood steadily and didn't rush to attack. At this time, his right foot suddenly stepped toward Li Mao from the side. He raised his right arm and blocked Li Mao's chopping force easily. Because of this clever step, his body was in front of his opponent. At this time all the muscles on Peng Qingguang's back seemed to be connected, shaking like a big snake. He raised his right arm and followed it up with an elbow strike. Bang! Li Mao hurriedly used his left palm to block, but immediately felt a majestic force coming towards him. Peng Qingguang had forcefully slammed his palm into his chest. He felt stuffy and lost his center of gravity, falling backward. Peng Qingguang took advantage of the momentum from the elbow strike and quickly shot out his forearm to grab Li Mao's collar like a gust of wind. Using his skillful strength, he helped Li Mao regain his balance. Then, he elegantly retracted his hand and looked at Li Mao with a smile. If he didn't grab my collar but pinched my throat, I would be dead. Li Mao stood there in a daze. The referee announced the result. The fourth round, Peng Qingguang wins. The shouts and cheers echoing in the martial arts arena stopped abruptly, leaving only a few echoes. The audience didn't expect Li Mao to lose so quickly and so easily. He looked like he couldn't fight back at all. Isn't this professional ninth pin too strong? Lu Cheng suddenly stood up and looked at the ring. His blood was boiling and his fighting spirit was surging. This is the kind of opponent I look forward to. If you only know how to bully the weak, then what's the point of learning martial arts? Peng Qingguang also turned around and looked at Lu Cheng. He put on a posture and made an inviting gesture. When the four eyes met, sparks and electric currents seemed to be ignited in the air. The four fighters of the Azure Dragon squad suddenly held their breath as if they felt the turbulent waves between Lu Cheng and Peng Qingguang. Lin Ke took a deep breath and showed a rare look of regret. He only regretted that his injury hadn't healed yet. Chapter 168. Defeating a spent Li Mao with one move was not scary. Any professional ninth pin fighter in his prime could do that. What was scary about Peng Qingguang was that he seemed to be able to lift a heavy weight with ease and still had plenty of energy left. This made people feel intimidated. As for the spectators in the stands, most of them were just here to watch the show. They were not professional enough, so they were more shocked by the comparison between the two and the instant kill. Li Mao had just fought with Zhang Ying as if Mars had collided with Earth, and he had fiercely won the battle, but in the blink of an eye, he was defeated by someone in one move. If it were anyone who did not understand the difference between the lower ranks, they would inevitably be shocked and lose their voice, unable to recover for a while. In the rare silence of today's competition, Lu Cheng and Yan Zhike looked at each other, high-fived, and walked toward the arena. During this process, he saw Li Mao come back in a daze as if he was shocked. He heard the scattered cheers around him, which revealed some indescribable depression. In such an environment, Lu Cheng vaguely felt that Peng Qingguang had the upper hand. He hadn't shown his real strength yet, hadn't won a victory that was enough to silence the audience. How could he have controlled the situation? In the seats of Songqing University Martial Arts Club, Sun Jian and others also smelled the strangeness in the air and felt the atmosphere that shouldn't be there. Yan Zhike, who was wearing a white martial arts suit with black edges, suddenly stood up, put her hands around her mouth and shouted softly but loudly, "Come on, Lu Cheng." The voice broke the silence. Yan Zhike suddenly sobered up and sat down in a graceful posture. She ignored the gazes of the onlookers and acted as if she had done nothing. "Come on, Lu Cheng." The familiar voice engraved in his mind warmed Lu Cheng's heart. He looked back with a smile, only to see Yan Zhike sitting in the same seat, looking at him innocently with her big black and white eyes. She smiled and clenched her fist, waving it delicately as if to say, "I'm quiet, I'm well behaved. That crazy woman just now is not me." While Lu Cheng couldn't help but laugh, the spectators on both sides of the stands were awakened. Shouts of "Come on, Lu Cheng" followed one after another. At first it was noisy and disorderly, but then it gradually became orderly and finally turned into shouts that echoed around the martial arts arena. "Come on, Lu Cheng." At this moment, Lu Cheng felt like he was a man with his own background. Surrounded and cheered by the crowd, he walked towards the ring step by step. When he passed by Li Mao, he nodded slightly, clenched his fist and extended it. "You played very well." Li Mao clenched his fists and bumped them together. "I believe you can win." The two of them brushed past each other. Lu Cheng climbed up the stone steps and calmly walked forward under Peng Qingguang's gaze. Amidst the waves of cheers, each louder than the last, he stood in front of the enemy. "This is my territory and I call the shots." The referee did not give the two commanders a chance to speak. He raised his right hand and said, "The final round begins." As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Cheng, who had already adjusted his body condition, swayed his center of gravity, drew an arc in the air and pounced on his opponent without warning. At the same time, Peng Qingguang's thigh muscles swelled and squirmed as if they had a life of their own. With a spring and a shake, he changed from a standstill to a high speed. He rushed towards Lu Cheng's original position, as if he wanted to catch his opponent off guard and prevent him from using the skill of mercurial balance. With a dash and a flash, Lu Cheng came to Peng Qingguang's side. He bent his body slightly, stepped on the ground, and suddenly launched a seabed cannon straight at his opponent's waist. This was similar to his previous performance when he used mercurial balance to fight strong opponents, but in essence, it was completely different. This was not seabed cannon but seabed quake. And Lu Cheng had already quietly lowered his center of gravity, intending to use all his strength in this attack. Rumble. His mind was filled with thunderclouds, the dark sound reverberated, and the fascia and muscles of his arms and shoulders were tight. Peng Qingguang had just steadied himself when he was faced with such a blow. He had no time to do a side kick, so he had to explode the strength in his shoulders, waved his right arm and raised his fist like a hammer. Bang! As soon as the two collided, Lu Cheng's compressed strength exploded, like detonating a cannonball. The first strike of Thunder Roar Zen. Boom! Peng Qingguang's mind suddenly buzzed, and he felt like he had hit a landmine. The violent vibration started from his right fist and quickly spread to his whole body, shaking his skin, muscles, fascia, and bones, rolling his qi and blood, and affecting his internal organs. Tremor punch? Lu Cheng has mastered tremor punch? He felt so uncomfortable that he wanted to vomit, and even his strength seemed to become difficult. But he knew that victory was at hand, so he quickly gathered his spirit, contracted his body slightly, and then immediately opened it, and his feet fiercely touched the ground. Crack! With his feet as the round point, thin crisscrossing cracks appeared on the ground, forming a spider web. And with this rebound, the muscles of Peng Qingguang's calves, thighs, back, abdomen, chest, arms and shoulders suddenly came to life, turning into ferocious flood dragons, propping up his clothes and exploding them. Following that, he twisted his waist and back, twisting this force into one and sending out a fierce swing force. Lu Cheng had succeeded in his punch and was about to win the game, but suddenly he felt that Peng Qingguang in front of him had turned into an erupting volcano, and his whole body was gushing with terrible strength. Then he was involuntarily thrown out and lost his balance. What a terrifying outburst! Lu Cheng's heart tightened as he quickly adjusted his muscles. When the first step landed, he had basically regained his balance. However, he didn't stop there. Instead, he took 2 more steps, accumulating strength with each step. He was waiting for Peng Qingguang's pursuit so that he could give him a counterattack. After 2 steps, Lu Cheng had turned around and found that Peng Qingguang was still standing there, exhaling a long breath, and didn't take the opportunity to attack. He suddenly realized that Peng Qingguang didn't feel good under his Thunder Roar Zen, and maybe he had just stabilized his qi and blood. He didn't chase not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't. Their eyes met again and they shouted at the same time, "Good!" They cheered for their own performance and also for the enemy's strength. In the stands, Kai Zongming, Qiu Zhigao, Zhao Chang and other roommates had already arrived as Lu Cheng's friends and relatives. They were watching the big screen attentively, and they gasped because of the collision just now. In the previous attack, Lu Cheng's Thunder Roar Zen was aimed directly at the enemy, and its power was not shown at all. It was far less terrifying than Peng Qingguang's throwing of his opponent by stepping on the green bricks, wriggling his muscles and throwing his opponent, which made them frightened for a moment. "Talker, Cheng's opponent seems to be very strong," Zhang Jingye said with a toothache. Kai Zongming was also worried, but he looked calm on the surface. No matter how strong he is, can he be stronger than an 8th pin in the dance stage? But last time it was Lin Ke who attacked first. Qiu Zhigao subconsciously retorted. Kai Zongming laughed and said, "But Peng Qingguang is not in the dance stage. He just stepped on a few green stones, right? Cheng can do the same. Besides, it's normal to lose a few challenge tournaments. Who hasn't lost in the Dragon King and Warrior Sage? There are so many modern competitions, who can guarantee that he will only meet an enemy who is only a little stronger than himself?" Zhao Chang didn't know much about martial arts, so when he heard Talker's words he was relieved. He muttered to himself that it was also possible to race, and then looked at the arena again. Lu Cheng and Peng Qingguang were fighting again. This time he shook his center of gravity and flashed to the left side of his opponent. He planned to make a feint attack to trick his opponent into attacking first, while he flashed to the back of his opponent in advance and took the opportunity to attack with Thunder Roar Zen. He shook his right arm as if he was going to attack, but his center of gravity swayed and he flashed to the back of Peng Qingguang like a ghost. However, during this process, Peng Qingguang didn't move at all, as if he had seen through his trick. Lu Qing didn't dare to stay. He slid his feet and shifted his center of gravity, flashing to the right side of his opponent again. According to the video of the competition, Peng Qingguang did have a little taste of absolute reaction, and he was better than Lu Qing in this aspect. It seems that I can't find a chance to attack his Thunder Roar Zen by combining feint attacks and mercurial center of gravity. Lu Qing figured out the key while he was moving. Thinking of this, he suddenly had an idea and did a reverse thinking. Peng Qingguang didn't have a complete, absolute reaction. If he could make it a little bit more realistic, it might have a miraculous effect. Without much time to think, Lu Qing suddenly took a deep breath and let his spirit enter the state of concealment of spirit and qi. He visualized the white peaks and thousands of miles of snow, and got rid of all distracting thoughts, leaving only the part of him that was integrated into it. Boom! Lightning struck and the snow mountain collapsed. Hundreds of millions of tons of snow turned into a torrent and rushed down. Lu Qing shook his right arm as if he was going to release the power that engulfed everything. At this moment, his mega avalanche was ready in form and spirit. Just as his right arm was shaking, Peng Qingguang's thigh muscles suddenly tightened. His tattered martial arts shoes flew out and gave a quick and fierce side kick. However, before Lu Qing's mega avalanche was released, he had already swayed his center of gravity and flashed to the back of Peng Qingguang. Seizing the opportunity when Peng Qingguang didn't withdraw his side kick, he lowered his waist and took a step forward, compressing the muscles of his arms and shoulders. Then he clasped his hands together and hit from the top right to the bottom left like a huge hammer. This was a blow that could withstand 2 tremor punches. This was the conventional killing move of Thunder Roar Zen, Mountain Smash Punch. Chapter 169. Lu Qing was like a giant in myths and legends. He swung a sledgehammer and smashed it down from the top. He looked condescending and full of strength. Everyone in the Mingwei martial arts school exclaimed instinctively. Gao Rao, Zhang Ying and the others in the Mingwei martial arts school stood up directly. They had just witnessed Big Brother throw Lu Qing out with all his strength, which made him lose his center of gravity temporarily. He almost couldn't maintain his balance and had to use the old method of wandering to avoid the attack. However, in less than a minute, the situation took a turn for the worse. Big Brother was deceived by the feint and was caught by the enemy. He was about to face an attack that was hard to defend against. How could this happen? Big Brother was close to absolute reaction, and was not afraid of sneak attacks or feints. They couldn't understand what was happening in the arena. They only felt that their dream had turned into a nightmare. They subconsciously clenched their fists and tightened their bodies, looking at the arena with worry and hope. Not only did they not understand, but the 4 professional 9th pin fighters of Azure Dragon Squad were also confused. They couldn't understand the response of the 2 in the arena. Others only knew that Lu Qing relied on mercurial balance to avoid the attack and look for an opportunity. However, they could see that it was actually Peng Qingguang who was worried about a head-on collision. Facing Lu Qing's attack, he didn't dodge first and then counterattacked. He relied on his vision, knowledge and judgment to seize the opportunity and attack the opponent's vital points directly, forcing the opponent to give up the idea of a head-on collision. How could Peng Qingguang be afraid of a head-on collision with Lu Qing? Didn't he just crush the green bricks and throw Lu Qing out of the room? In terms of strength, speed, agility, skills, experience and style, he shouldn't be afraid. Several fighters of Azure Dragon Squad looked at each other and vaguely felt that something was wrong. What was Peng Qingguang, who had beaten them so badly, afraid of? After he flung Lu Qing out, why didn't he take the opportunity to attack and kill him? At this moment, Lu Qing had completely forgotten the changes around him. He couldn't hear the exclamations of the audience and the cheers after they woke up. His eyes and ears were only focused on Peng Qingguang's every move. He clasped his hands together and swung down fiercely with the momentum of, "I swear I won't stop until I break this mountain." If Peng Qingguang used the scorpion swings its tail, then he would use the mountain smash quake to block his kick. After all, the Thunder Roar Zen only required contact, and there was no rule on where the contact had to be. Once the force of the explosion was released, the resulting shockwave would be almost the same as hitting a vital point. If Peng Qingguang gave up his stance and rolled forward to avoid the attack, then he would withdraw his strength in time and catch up with him in large strides. He would seize the opportunity when Peng Qingguang was unable to support himself and could not use his strength to secure the victory. The subsequent changes flashed through Lu Qing's mind. He swung the sledgehammer, even more resolutely. At this moment, Peng Qingguang didn't completely withdraw his right leg from the side kick. Instead, he took the opportunity to shrink his neck and jump to the right. Lu Cheng's mountain smash punch, which was aimed at his right shoulder, turned into an attack on his left shoulder. As soon as his right foot touched the ground, he suddenly lowered his center of gravity and lowered his waist into a sitting position. His body seemed to curl up subtly. His strength and qi and blood seemed to condense at one point in his dantian. Then that point suddenly burst out and gushed out. As Peng Qingguang's body opened, the force rushed to his shoulder. Peng Qingguang stepped on the ground and his shoulder exploded. All the muscles in his body bulged. He took the initiative to raise his shoulder to meet Lu Cheng's mountain smash. Bam! The moment the two came into contact, Lu Cheng exploded the thunderclouds in his mind and opened up the tightened muscles, creating a violent vibration like the bombardment of cannonballs. At the same time, Peng Qingguang quickly turned his back and shook his shoulders. Bam! Peng Qingguang's two tattered martial arts shoes opened and turned into butterflies fluttering above the cracks on the ground. Lu Cheng was like a kite with a broken string. He was thrown out of the air and fell a few meters away. Peng Qingguang barely blocked the killing move of Thunder Roar Zen, in this desperate situation with only a simple sitting position. But he didn't feel good. His joints, fascias and muscles were visibly trembling. His qi and blood were rolling crazily. His internal organs were shaking. Every part of his body was buzzing and trembling. He was out of control. Lu Cheng just landed on the ground and took a few steps forward. He was adjusting his muscles and recovering his center of gravity. He was also accumulating strength. Bam! He stepped on a green brick with his right foot and turned around. Like a fierce eagle, he pounced on Peng Qingguang again. He wanted to seize the opportunity when Peng Qingguang hadn't fully recovered from the violent vibration and give him another Thunder Roar Zen. Kill him while he's down. Lu Cheng pounced on Peng Qingguang for a few meters. He tightened the muscles of his right arm and swayed his back. He shook the fascias of his torso and was about to launch a powerful mountain blast punch. The third strike of Thunder Roar Zen. Peng Qingguang's body hadn't fully recovered from the vibration. He didn't dare to block it directly. He stepped on the ground with his bare foot and swept backward. He landed a few meters away steadily. Lu Cheng didn't show any mercy. He stepped forward with his left foot and broke the green brick. With the help of the rebound, he pounced on Peng Qingguang again. His right hand was ready to launch the tremor punch. Peng Qingguang stepped on the ground again and continued to sweep backward. He quickly dodged to a few meters away. His dodging was similar to Lin Kei's when he dodged Wei Xingtian's attack. The difference was that Lin Kei was like a nimble mountain goat while Lu Cheng was like a flying goose. Lu Cheng didn't feel frustrated at all. His eyes were firm and his mind was calm. He stepped on the ground with his right foot and continued to attack. He didn't give Peng Qingguang any chance to catch his breath. After retreating 3 times in a row, Peng Qingguang stood at the edge of the ring. His feet suddenly stopped, like a dam standing in front of a flood. His body suddenly straightened. When he retreated for the second time, the vibration in his body was almost recovered. He retreated again just to launch a counterattack. Peng Qingguang lowered his center of gravity and condensed his qi and blood into a single point. His right hand first swung back and then turned into a long spear. With a terrifying explosion of strength and the shaking of his snake-like muscles, Peng Qingguang thrust the spear at Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng, who had exhausted his momentum. Lu Cheng didn't dodge at all. He swung his right arm with the courage to meet an enemy in a narrow path. The explosion made a thunderous sound and ignited the tremor Zen. Bang! The two collided. Peng Qingguang's qi and blood were rolling over. He felt dizzy and his chest was tight. But his explosion just now offset most of the vibration, so his body didn't tremble violently. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, was forced to take 3 steps back, crushing several green bricks. Only then was he able to neutralize the boundless force and stabilize his body. At this time, Peng Qingguang had counterattacked and got close to him. He took half a step forward and hit him with the crushing punch. For him, after 3 explosions, his body was close to its limit. If he was hit by 2 or 3 more tremor punches, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. Moreover, his opponent had prepared a feint attack, so he couldn't judge in advance. He had to rely on his eyes, ears and other senses to help identify. In this way, it would be difficult for him to attack back. He would always try to win the vital points and force his opponent to give up. Therefore, he had to get close to his opponent. He had to fight at close range and not give his opponent a chance to compress his muscles and use the tremor punch. Bang! Lu Cheng stabilized in time and swung his fist down to block Peng Qingguang's crushing punch. But Peng Qingguang leaned on his left foot and slightly leaned his body, followed by an elbow attack. Lu Qing had to give up the idea of borrowing strength. He exploded the strength of his left shoulder and blocked with his hand. Bang, 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 bang. The two people kept colliding in the small space. Hands, wrists, elbows, shoulders, knees, toes and other parts hit one after another. The result was decided in an instant. The referee at the side was nervous and became more cautious. Because every year, more than 70% of the cases of injuries and deaths due to not being able to stop in time were in this kind of close combat situation. The sound of punches and kicks was endless. In such a close combat, Lu Qing didn't have a chance to use the tremor zen. Even the strength of his legs became rushed. He was suppressed by Peng Qingguang in terms of strength. But his mind was cold, his judgment was calm and his moves were firm. Plus, his big and small hand wrap was flexible and fierce so he didn't panic. He believed that Peng Qingguang would become weaker as the fight went on. In the heat of the battle, both of them moved sideways and collided with each other. Bang! Peng Qingguang's body shook. Lu Qing seemed to be a little slower and took a step back. Chance. Peng Qingguang knew that he couldn't fight for a long time. Taking advantage of this rare opportunity, he took a step forward and grabbed Lu Cheng's left arm that was dragging behind. He knew that his listening skill was not as good as Lu Cheng's, so he didn't grab Lu Cheng. When he was about to use force to tear Lu Cheng's arm, he suddenly felt that Lu Cheng's muscles tightened and stuck inwards, which made his judgment a little bit wrong. At the same time, Lu Cheng's spine straightened and his back swayed. The right side of his body swung and his fist quickly and violently punched out like a long-awaited cannonball. Bang! Peng Qingguang hurriedly parried and felt that Lu Cheng's strength exploded immediately. Although it was much weaker than before, it was still very scary. His body trembled and his qi and blood were rolling. He saw Lu Cheng's left arm free and pulled back. Then he swung it up and hit him fiercely again. Thunder roar zen. Bang bang bang. Lu Cheng swung his arms and attacked continuously. Peng Qingguang's internal organs were very uncomfortable and his brain was buzzing. Seeing this, Mo Zitsong, the captain of Azure Dragon Squad, suddenly realized something and blurted out, "Tremor punch. Lu Cheng has mastered tremor punch." No wonder Peng Qingguang wanted to avoid a head-on fight. No wonder he didn't seize the opportunity to attack before. Tremor punch? Deng Hua and the other two fighters whispered in surprise. At this moment, Lu Cheng swung his right arm again and tightened his muscles. In the thunder reverberating in his brain, he unreasonably hammered down. Thunder roars and hit again. Bang! Peng Qingguang barely parried. His body swayed and his eyes were full of dizziness. He was like a person who was born with impaired hearing and went on a roller coaster ride. Lu Cheng shook his left arm like a spear and stopped at Peng Qingguang's throat. Peng Qingguang couldn't even raise his hands. The referee heaved a sigh of relief and announced loudly, "The final round, Lu Cheng wins." Lu Cheng also heaved a sigh of relief and smiled sincerely, "You're very good. I almost lost. If Peng Qingguang had better martial arts, not to mention the Thunder Roar Zen and the Meteor Force, even the Mega Avalanche would be able to defeat him." Peng Qingguang's brain was buzzing and his body was very uncomfortable. He only saw Lu Cheng's mouth open and close but couldn't hear clearly. It was rare that he didn't show his maturity and answered blankly, "What?" That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.